Hey guys. Tonight we drift into a world that pretends to be finished with war while quietly feeding on it. You're here, right now, lying wherever you listen best, while the echoes of artillery still rattle somewhere behind your eyes. The guns have stopped, the papers say, and the parades have already swept the streets clean. But when you close your eyes, the trenches don't ask for permission. They arrive anyway. You tell yourself this is peace. You tell yourself you survived. And then, just to keep things honest, you admit, with a small crooked smile, that you probably wouldn't survive what comes next. Not really. Not the way it's about to unfold. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're home, or at least the place everyone insists on calling home. The station platform smells like coal smoke and damp wool, and the air is full of voices that sound cheerful in the way people sound when they're desperate for normality. You step down from the train with a duffel bag that feels lighter than it should. Because most of what you carried into the war never came back with you. Someone claps you on the shoulder. Someone thanks you. Someone says the word hero, like it's a bandage they're hoping will stick. Your body doesn't agree with any of it. Your hands shake just enough to be annoying. Not enough to cause a scene. You've learned control. In the trenches, control was survival. Your sleep is thin and brittle, snapping the moment a door slams or a car backfires. At night, your legs ache with a deep, listening pain, the kind that waits to see if you'll notice it. You notice it. This is a well-known moment in history, the end of the First World War. When millions of soldiers returned to civilian life carrying wounds that didn't always bleed. Less often mentioned is how unprepared everyone was for what came next. Shell shock, they call it. Like a nickname you give a dog instead of learning its real name. Historians still debate whether doctors truly understood what they were treating or whether they simply labeled fear and trauma as weakness wearing a uniform. You try to work, you really do. You stand in a factory line or behind a counter or wherever they've decided your hands are useful now. The noise presses in on you. Your heart jumps for no reason at all. You sweat through your shirt even in winter. And people start to look at you the way they look at machinery that's starting to make unfamiliar sounds. Eventually, someone suggests a doctor. The office smells like antiseptic and paper. The doctor listens with the kind of patience that feels practiced. He nods when you describe the pain in your leg. The buzzing in your head. The way your thoughts skid off at night instead of slowing down. He doesn't flinch. This part is important. He doesn't flinch because he's seen it before. Because you're not unique. Because there's already a solution waiting in a small glass vial. Morphine, heroin, clean, pharmaceutical, respectable. Here's the strange truth people forget. Heroin wasn't a shadowy street drug yet. It was marketed as modern, efficient, almost elegant, a gift of science to a world that wanted to stop hurting. Doctors prescribed it with the same confidence they prescribed rest and fresh air. Historians still debate how much of this confidence came from genuine belief and how much came from desperation to offer something. Anything that worked quickly. You don't argue when he offers it. Why would you? You've argued with pain long enough. The first injection is quiet. No fireworks. No cinematic collapse. Just warmth, spreading gently, like someone turned the volume down on the world. Your shoulders drop without you telling them to. Your thoughts slow, lining up neatly for the first time in months. The war recedes. Not erased. Just moved to another room and asked to wait. You almost laugh. That's joke number 1 tonight. Discovering that peace fits inside a syringe. For the first time since you stepped off that train, you sleep, not the shallow, twitching sleep you've been surviving on, but something deeper, heavier. When you wake, the pain is still there, but it's distant, like it's been instructed to keep its voice down. You tell yourself this is temporary. Medicine, treatment, responsible. You come back for another dose when the ache returns. Then another. The doctor doesn't seem concerned. You're a veteran. You earned relief. And besides, you're functioning now. You smile more. You show up on time. You're almost pleasant to be around. Here's a lesser-known fact that lingers uncomfortably. Many early addicts didn't feel like addicts at all. They felt like patients following instructions. Historians still debate when dependency crossed the line into something recognized as dangerous. Because that line moved depending on who was standing on it. You notice, eventually, that the hours between doses feel longer than they used to. That the quiet you borrowed starts asking to be repaid sooner. You learn how to describe your pain in ways that sound reasonable. Specific, convincing. You don't think of it as lying. You think of it as translation. That's joke number 2, becoming fluent in your own suffering. Outside, the country is trying to knit itself back together. Monuments go up. Names get carved into stone. Bands play marches that sound proud and clean. None of them mention the small rooms where men like you sit, waiting for a doctor to say yes again. You tell yourself you're fine. You tell yourself this is normal. After what you've seen, you deserve something that works. And for now, it does. But somewhere beneath the calm, beneath the careful routines and the approved doses, your body is learning a new lesson. A quiet one. It's learning that relief doesn't come from safety or sleep or time. It comes from a needle. Historians still debate whether anyone could have stopped this early. Whether the path was inevitable once war taught bodies how to live in extremes. Sitting here with you, listening to your breathing finally slow. It's hard to say where choice ends and momentum begins. For tonight, though, the warmth holds. The world stays hushed. The memories wait politely behind a closed door. And you drift, believing, just for now, that this is what healing feels like. The relief doesn't announce its departure. It slips away politely, like a guest who doesn't want to cause a scene. You wake one morning and realize the quiet isn't as quiet as it was. The ache in your leg has leaned closer. The buzzing in your head has turned up a notch. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to remind you that the warmth you borrowed had an expiration date. You tell yourself this is normal. Medicine wears off. That's how medicine works. You return to the doctor's office with the same calm explanation. The same carefully arranged symptoms. He nods again. He always nods. There's comfort in that nod. Like a stamp that says approved. Another dose follows. And once more the world obliges by softening its edges. That's joke number 1 tonight. Realizing the world is surprisingly cooperative when chemistry is involved. Here's the widely known part of the history. spoken in textbooks and lectures. After World War I, morphine and heroin use rose sharply among veterans. Less often mentioned is how invisible this rise felt at the time. There were no dramatic headlines yet. No moral panic. These were wounded men being treated with modern medicine. Historians still debate whether the scale of the problem was misunderstood or simply inconvenient to notice. You notice something else instead. The dose that once felt generous now feels sufficient, adequate, like a blanket that covers you. But only just. You sleep, but lighter. You wake with the sense that something unfinished is tapping at the back of your skull. You start to time it without admitting that you are. You know roughly when the ache will sharpen, when your thoughts will begin to skitter like startled animals. You plan your day around that knowledge. It feels efficient, sensible. That's joke number 2. Calling planning what is actually dependence. Outside, life insists on moving forward. Factories hum, shops reopen, people talk about the future with a confidence that feels almost rude. You try to match it. You smile when expected. You nod when conversations drift toward optimism. Inside, you're counting hours. Your body has begun to learn patterns. This is important. It learns that relief arrives not through rest or reassurance, but through a specific sequence of actions. Walking to the office. Sitting in the chair. Rolling up your sleeve. Anticipation becomes its own sensation. A faint tightening that loosens the moment the needle appears. Historians still debate how quickly physical dependence formed with medically supervised use. The records are patchy. The language euphemistic. What's clear is that bodies don't wait for permission. They adapt. One afternoon, the doctor hesitates. Just a fraction. He asks if the pain is improving. You answer honestly enough. Some days. He nods. But there's a new note in his tone. Caution. He mentions reducing the dose eventually. Not now. Later. The word hangs between you like a threat disguised as a plan. You leave with your prescription anyway. But something has shifted. The warmth comes. But it doesn't settle you the way it used to. Instead, it carries an edge of urgency. You enjoy it quickly, greedily, like you're afraid it might notice you taking it for granted. That's joke number 3. Savoring relief the way you savor food when you suspect it's the last meal. At night, you begin to wake earlier than you should. Not from nightmares exactly. Those still come, but from a restless awareness in your muscles. Your leg aches with a sharper insistence. Your stomach feels hollow in a way that has nothing to do with hunger. You lie there, staring at the ceiling, telling yourself morning isn't far. This is where a strange historical fact quietly fits in. Heroin was once marketed as a non-addictive alternative to morphine. Safer, cleaner, modern. Historians still debate how much this belief delayed recognition of addiction among patients like you. Lying awake in the dark. You don't debate marketing claims. You just want your body to stop negotiating. You begin to adjust your explanations. Not lying, refining. You mention new twinges, lingering soreness, a return of symptoms the war never quite explained. The doctor listens, frowns, writes. The dose stays the same. Relief arrives again, but now it feels less like healing and more like maintenance. You're aware, dimly, that you're protecting something, a routine, a guarantee, the idea that there's a reliable way out of discomfort. Even if it's temporary. You don't say this out loud. saying it would make it real. Work becomes easier and harder at the same time. Easier because the medicine smooths your edges. Harder because the hours without it feel longer. More demanding. You watch the clock the way you once watched the horizon for shellfire. Not fearfully, attentively. That's joke number 4. Trading one countdown for another. Someone you served with mentions trouble sleeping. You almost tell him about the injections. Almost. Something stops you. A sense that this is yours. Personal. Controlled. You don't want to cheapen it by sharing. Here's another lesser-known truth. Many veterans didn't speak openly about their dependence because it didn't feel like a vice. It felt like compliance. Historians still debate how stigma formed later, when laws and language shifted. Right now, there's no stigma, just silence. The doctor finally suggests spacing the doses. Not stopping, just spacing. You agree outwardly and panic inwardly. The space between becomes a landscape you dread. You discover how quickly your thoughts narrow when relief is postponed. How the ache spreads its influence, coloring everything with irritability and unease. You begin to bargain with time. If you can just make it to the afternoon. If you can just get through this meeting. Each small victory feels earned. Exhausting. When the needle finally arrives, the warmth feels different now. Less like a gift, more like a correction. Your body exhales with something close to gratitude. And in that quiet moment, a realization flickers, quick and easily dismissed. The medicine isn't treating the pain anymore. It's teaching your body what absence feels like. Historians still debate when the line was crossed. When patient became addict in stories like yours. Sitting here with the warmth settling in. The world finally dimming again. The line doesn't feel sharp. It feels gradual. Reasonable. Almost polite. And you let yourself drift. Telling yourself, just as you did before, that tomorrow will be easier. After all, the medicine still works. For now, the first thing you notice is that mornings have changed. They don't begin anymore, they confront you. Your eyes open, and before thought arrives, your body is already awake in the wrong way. Your leg aches with a sharper edge. Your back feels tight, coiled. There's a thin, electric irritability humming just under your skin, like a wire pulled too taut. You lie still and wait for it to pass. It doesn't. That's joke number 1. Discovering that time no longer fixes what it used to. You tell yourself you're just stiff. War injuries do that. Everyone says so. Cold weather, old damage, perfectly reasonable explanations. You repeat them while you dress. While you eat a breakfast that tastes faintly of cardboard. While you step outside and feel the world rubbing against you the wrong way. The walk to the doctor's office feels longer now. Not in distance, just in effort. Each step carries a low-level impatience. A sense that you're late for something important even when you're not. By the time you sit in the familiar chair, your knee bouncing without permission, your jaw clenched tight enough to ache, you feel relief simply at the idea of what's coming. That anticipation surprises you. Here's a historical detail people rarely linger on. Early dependence often shows itself first not as craving, but as relief-seeking behavior. Historians still debate whether patients recognized this shift internally or only in hindsight. Sitting there, sleeve already rolled up before you remember doing it. You don't label it at all. The injection arrives, and the change is immediate. Not dramatic. Just alignment. Your shoulders drop. Your jaw unlocks. The irritability drains away like water down a plug hole. You exhale a breath you didn't realize you were holding. That's joke number 2. Realizing your body has been holding meetings without you. For a while, you feel almost normal. Better than normal. Maybe. The edges of the day soften. Sounds don't scrape anymore. You move through work with an ease that surprises you. You even catch yourself humming, something you haven't done since before the war. But there's a shadow now. Faint but persistent. You notice it when the afternoon stretches on. The warmth hasn't left yet. But your thoughts have started to drift toward when it will. You glance at the clock more often than necessary. You calculate, unconsciously, how long you have before things start to tilt again. This is the part no one warned you about. The way relief teaches you what to fear. Historians still debate how much of early addiction is physical versus psychological. The records are muddy, full of euphemisms and polite language. Living it, the distinction feels irrelevant. Your mind and body are no longer separate negotiators, they're a committee. At home, you try to rest without the medicine later than usual. Just to prove you can. The experiment lasts an hour. Maybe 2. Your muscles tighten. Your thoughts race in small, unpleasant loops. Everything irritates you. The ticking clock. The neighbor's footsteps. The way your shirt sits against your skin. You snap at someone you care about and immediately regret it. That's joke number 3. Becoming short-tempered while insisting you're fine. When you finally allow yourself the dose you were delaying, the relief feels sharper, almost euphoric. Too much. Maybe. It floods you instead of settling gently. For a moment, the world feels unreal, like it's been dipped in warm syrup. You laugh quietly at nothing in particular. And then, just as quickly, you feel a flicker of concern. Not enough to stop you. Just enough to notice. Here's a lesser-known fact tucked into medical history. Many early heroin users reported a brief phase of heightened pleasure as tolerance began to form. Often misread as improvement, historians still debate how often this stage accelerated dependency. Sitting there, warmth blooming a little too brightly. You don't analyze it, you enjoy it. You start thinking in terms of balance. Too little medicine and the day collapses. Too much and things feel loose. You aim for the middle. Controlled. Responsible. You tell yourself this is what management looks like. The doctor mentions cutting back again. Not today. Soon. You nod. Agree. Smile. Inside, a cold unease spreads. The idea of less now carries weight. Less quiet. Less control. Less space between you and the noise in your head. You leave the office with the familiar ache already whispering from somewhere deep in your leg. Even though the medicine is still working. That shouldn't be possible. You notice it anyway. That's joke number 4. Feeling pain while painkillers are still on duty. Walking home, you pass a group of men laughing loudly outside a cafe. Their ease irritates you. You don't know why. You've done nothing wrong. You're being treated. You're following instructions. And yet, something in you has shifted. You're no longer using medicine to return to yourself. You're using it to protect yourself from mornings, from waiting, from the thin edge of discomfort that now feels unbearable. Historians still debate when the transformation truly occurs. There's no date you can circle on a calendar. No moment you can point to and say, "There, That's when it happened. From the inside, it feels simpler than that. It feels like learning a rule you didn't know you were studying for. Life without the drug isn't impossible. It's just no longer acceptable. And as you settle into the evening, warmth still holding you together, you tell yourself, again, that you're in control. After all, you haven't broken any rules. You've just learned how to live. Between doses, the doctor's office smells different today. Or maybe you're just noticing it more. Antiseptic and old paper, with something faintly sweet underneath that you can't quite place. You sit down, cross your legs, uncross them, cross them again, your knee bounces. You stop it with your hand, annoyed at yourself. You weren't always like this. That thought floats through your head uninvited. You don't chase it. Chasing thoughts is tiring. The doctor clears his throat and mentions adjustment. Such a gentle word. He says it like he's talking about tailoring a jacket, not rearranging the chemistry of your days. A slightly lower dose, a slightly longer gap, just to see how you respond. You nod. You always nod. That's joke number 1. Nodding as a survival reflex. The injection comes anyway, but it's lighter. You feel it immediately, not as warmth, but as less warmth. The relief arrives, but it stops short, like a train that doesn't quite reach the platform. Your shoulders drop, but your jaw stays tight. The noise in your head dims, but it doesn't turn off. You tell yourself this is fine. Fine is good. Fine is manageable. Outside, the world continues its stubborn insistence on normalcy. Newspapers shout about reconstruction, about progress, about moving forward. You read the headlines and feel like they're written for a different species. Your forward movement is measured in hours between doses, not years between wars. Here's a well-known historical moment unfolding quietly around you. Post-war governments are trying to stabilize economies, rebuild cities, and reintegrate soldiers as quickly as possible. What rarely makes the speeches is how many men are being quietly medicated into functionality. Historians still debate whether this was neglect or necessity. Walking home with that half-relief humming through you. It feels like both. By afternoon, the difference becomes undeniable. The ache in your leg sharpens sooner than expected. Your skin feels tight, oversensitive, like your clothes are suddenly the wrong size. Sounds irritate you, the clatter of dishes, the scrape of a chair. You clench your teeth and breathe through it, reminding yourself that this is what responsibility looks like. That's joke number 2. Confusing discipline with discomfort. You last until early evening before giving in. You don't call it giving in. You call it adjusting the schedule. The dose hits harder than you expect, washing over the irritation with a sudden, almost embarrassing relief. You sigh audibly, alone in your room, and feel something dangerously close to gratitude. The relief doesn't last as long as it used to. You notice that too. The warmth fades quicker, leaving behind a restless afterimage, like a dream you're trying to hold onto after waking. This is the strange, lesser-known phase historians still puzzle over. The period where tolerance and withdrawal overlap, creating a cycle of partial relief and constant anticipation. It's not dramatic. It's exhausting. From the inside, it feels like always being slightly late for something important. Your nights suffer first. Sleep fragments into short, unhelpful pieces. You wake with your heart racing, sheets twisted around your legs. The ache pulsing insistently. You lie there, staring into the dark, bargaining with time. If I can just make it until morning. You start counting hours the way you once counted shells between barrages. That's joke number 3, trading explosions for clocks. The people around you begin to notice changes you can't fully see yourself. You're quieter, then suddenly sharp, distant, then oddly intense. You apologize more. You explain less. You don't talk about the medicine at all anymore. It feels private now, intimate. One evening, you run out earlier than expected. A miscalculation, a mistake. The hours that follow are not catastrophic, but they are deeply uncomfortable. Your muscles twitch, your stomach knots, your thoughts race in tight, unpleasant circles. You feel hollow, like something essential has been temporarily misplaced. You don't sleep at all. When morning finally arrives, pale and unsympathetic, you feel older than you did yesterday. Not wiser, just worn. Here's a fact that rarely appears in polite histories. Early withdrawal often masqueraded as worsening war injuries. Historians still debate how many men were misdiagnosed during this phase. Treated for pain while the real issue deepened quietly underneath. Sitting there, exhausted and irritable, you don't feel misdiagnosed. You feel unseen. You get your dose later that day. And the relief is immediate and profound. Almost too profound. Your body melts into it with a desperation that startles you. For a moment, the world feels bearable again. And that's when the fear finally surfaces, not loud, not panicked, just clear. You're no longer afraid of pain. You're afraid of without the warmth, without the quiet, without the pause button you've come to rely on. Historians still debate whether addiction begins with desire or with avoidance. Sitting here, warmth settling back into your bones. The answer feels obvious. You don't want the drug. You want the world to stop hurting. And right now, this is the only thing that seems to know how. You start waking before dawn now. Long before there's any reason to. The light outside hasn't even decided what it's doing yet. But your body is already alert in the worst possible way. Not rested, not ready, just aware. Every joint announces itself the moment you move. Your leg aches with a sharp impatience. Like it's offended you slept at all. You lie still, listening to your own breathing, waiting for the sensation to pass. It doesn't. That's joke number 1. Learning that mornings have opinions. You dress carefully, slowly, because haste makes the irritation spike. Your clothes feel wrong against your skin, too rough, too tight, too present. You tell yourself this is just nerves. You survived artillery. You can survive a shirt collar. The walk outside feels longer now. Even when you take the same route, each step lands heavier than the last. Not from pain exactly, but from a growing sense of wrongness. The world feels slightly out of alignment. Like a picture frame hung crooked enough that you can't stop noticing it. You catch yourself thinking, I just need to get through the morning. Not the day. Not the week. Just the morning. That thought sticks. Here's a historical reality that doesn't get much attention. Many veterans described their addiction not in terms of pleasure, but in terms of function. Heroin made it possible to exist in civilian time, measured in hours. Appointments, expectations, after years of living in survival time. Historians still debate whether society demanded normalcy faster than bodies could provide it. Standing there, jaw clenched, you feel the pressure of that demand pressing in. By the time you reach the doctor's office, your patience is gone. Not anger, something thinner, more brittle. You sit down and immediately stand back up. Then sit again. Your knee bounces. You stop it with both hands this time. The doctor notices. Of course he does. He asks how you're doing. You say, fine, because the alternative feels complicated. He mentions again that this level of reliance isn't ideal. He uses words like habit and gradual reduction. Words that sound reasonable when they aren't happening inside your body. You nod. You always nod. That's joke number 2. Agreeing while already planning around disagreement. The dose arrives. And the relief is immediate, but different. The warmth spreads. But it doesn't linger as long. It's thinner now. Like watered-down tea. Enough to take the edge off. Not enough to let you forget the edge exists. You notice something unsettling. You're already thinking about the next dose while the current one is still working. That realization lands quietly. But it lands hard. You try distracting yourself. Work. Conversation. Reading the paper. The words blur together. You read the same paragraph 3 times without absorbing it. Your thoughts keep drifting back to the same place. Like a needle pulled toward a magnet. Here's a lesser-known fact that later clinicians would recognize. Psychological fixation often intensifies before physical collapse. Historians still debate whether early intervention could have interrupted this phase. Sitting there, staring at newsprint you can't focus on. Intervention feels theoretical. By midday, the irritation creeps back. Not pain, absence. A hollow sensation in your chest and gut. Like something essential has stepped out for a moment and forgotten to come back. You feel restless, dissatisfied, unable to settle into anything. You snap at a colleague over something trivial and immediately apologize. Your apology sounds rehearsed. That bothers you more than the outburst. That's joke number 3, becoming fluent in regret. In the afternoon, you do something new. You take a smaller dose earlier than planned. Not because you're in agony. Not because you can't function. But because you don't want to feel the edge coming closer. You justify it carefully. You tell yourself you're smoothing things out. Preventing a crash. Maintenance. Not excess. The relief is subtle but undeniable. The hollow feeling eases. Your shoulders relax. You feel even. And then comes the thought you don't want to examine too closely. This is better. Not happier. Not joyful. Just easier. You notice how natural the decision felt. How little debate it required. That scares you. But only briefly. Fear takes energy. And energy is something you're learning to conserve. Here's another historical detail often lost in moralizing narratives. Many early addicts did not spiral quickly. They plateaued. They built routines around use that looked, from the outside, like stability. Historians still debate how this illusion delayed recognition. From the inside, it feels like success. Your evenings become quieter. But not in a good way. You don't seek company as often. Conversation feels demanding. You prefer being alone, where you don't have to manage your expressions or explain your silences. You sit in the dim light, letting the warmth keep the worst sensations at bay. Sleep comes, eventually, but it's shallow. You dream of being late for something you can't identify. You wake with your heart racing. Then settle back into stillness. annoyed at yourself for the effort. As days pass, you realize your world has narrowed. Not dramatically. Not obviously. Just enough that everything revolves around not feeling bad. Historians still debate when addiction becomes identity. Is it when behavior changes? When relationships fray? Or when the internal logic shifts so completely that alternatives stop registering as reasonable? Sitting there in the quiet, waiting for the next window of relief, the answer feels uncomfortably clear. You're not chasing pleasure anymore. You're managing baseline. And baseline, you're learning, is a moving target. You lie back, eyes half closed, letting the warmth hold you together for a while longer. The world stays quiet enough. Your thoughts slow. The ache retreats to a manageable distance. You tell yourself, honestly, that you can stop if you need to. Just not today. Today, you need to function. And this is how functioning works now. The strange thing is how ordinary it all feels now. You don't wake in a panic anymore. You wake in calculation, your eyes open, and before the ache even fully registers. Your mind is already estimating distances, time to the office, time until relief, time you'll need to hold yourself together. It's efficient, almost professional. That's joke number 1, turning discomfort into a scheduling problem. Your body feels heavier in the mornings, like it's reluctant to start moving without reassurance. Your leg throbs dully, not sharply, but persistently, like it's reminding you that it hasn't forgotten anything. Your hands feel stiff when you dress. Buttons take longer. Small tasks demand more attention than they used to. You tell yourself this is age, or weather, or consequences of war that don't follow neat timelines. You leave the house earlier now. Not because you need to, but because arriving early gives you something you value more than punctuality. Certainty. The doctor's office has become familiar in a way that feels intimate. You know which chair creaks, which window lets in the most light, which drawer holds the supplies. When the doctor asks how you're doing, you don't hesitate anymore. You answer smoothly, confidently, with just enough detail to sound credible. Here's a widely accepted historical truth that rarely gets described this way. Tolerance doesn't announce itself as a problem. It arrives as a suggestion. A quiet one. This could work better. Historians still debate how quickly tolerance formed with early pharmaceutical heroin. The dosages were different. The purity varied. The record-keeping was generous. What's clear is that bodies adapt faster than policies. You notice it first in the way relief feels shorter. The warmth still comes, but it fades more quickly, leaving behind a faint restlessness that wasn't there before. The quiet no longer stretches across the day. It barely makes it to lunchtime. That would have worried you once. Now, you adjust. You ask, casually, whether the dose might be increased slightly. Just to manage the pain. Just temporarily. The doctor hesitates, then agrees to a modest change. He mentions caution. You nod. You always nod. That's joke number 2. Nodding like caution has ever slowed momentum. The increased dose works. Of course it does. The warmth spreads more convincingly this time, smoothing the edges of your thoughts and loosening the tight coil in your chest. You feel functional again, capable. You even feel proud of how responsibly you handled the situation. You don't dwell on the fact that this solution required more of the thing you're supposed to be tapering. Your afternoons become bearable again. Not pleasant, bearable. That distinction matters. You can concentrate long enough to finish tasks. You can tolerate conversations without feeling like every word is scraping against your nerves. You can sit still without counting minutes quite so obsessively. But there's a cost. You notice it when you skip lunch without realizing it. When food feels optional, even unappealing. When your stomach feels tight and hollow, but not hungry in any recognizable way. You shrug it off. Plenty of people forget to eat. You notice it when sleep grows stranger. Deeper at first, then more fragmented. You fall asleep quickly but wake too early. Heart thudding softly. Thoughts already racing ahead of the day. You lie there, staring into the dark, waiting for morning like it owes you something. That's joke number 3. Being exhausted while technically resting. Here's a lesser-known historical detail that fits uncomfortably well. Early tolerance often led patients to cycle between mild overuse and low-grade withdrawal without recognizing either state clearly. Historians still debate how often this went unnoticed by physicians. From the inside, it doesn't feel like cycling. It feels like balance. You start carrying small reassurances with you. Extra doses, carefully measured. Not for indulgence, just in case. Knowing they're there relaxes you more than actually taking them. Control, you tell yourself, is about preparation. You find yourself less interested in the world beyond that control. News irritates you. Other people's problems feel distant. Abstract. You're not unkind, you're just preoccupied. Your inner landscape has narrowed. Focusing on a few essential variables: pain, relief, timing. Someone comments that you seem quieter lately. You smile and say you're tired. It's not a lie. It's just not the whole truth. That's joke number 4. Answering the right question instead of the real one. Your body continues its quiet negotiations. The ache returns sooner now when relief fades. The restlessness feels sharper when you delay a dose. Even slightly, your mood darkens with surprising speed. Irritation flares over nothing. Sounds feel too loud. Light feels intrusive. You don't like this version of yourself. So you correct it. Another small increase. Another adjustment. Always framed as temporary. Always reasonable in isolation. You're careful not to exceed what's prescribed, at least. Not often. You're still a patient. Still following rules. Historians still debate when dependence becomes inevitability. Some point to dosage. Others to behavior. Others to mindset. Sitting there. Warmth settling in again after another careful correction. The question feels academic. Because here's what you know now. In your bones. Life without the drug isn't unbearable. It's just worse. And worse has become unacceptable. You lie back in the evening, letting the familiar heaviness spread through your limbs. The world softens enough to tolerate. The ache retreats to a manageable distance. Your thoughts slow, arranging themselves into something close to calm. You tell yourself you've found the right level. That you've learned how to listen to your body. That this is stability. And for tonight, at least, the lie is comfortable enough to sleep in. Paper becomes important before you realize why. Slips. Forms, signatures, little rectangles of authority that decide whether your day will be tolerable or quietly unbearable. You start noticing them everywhere, on the doctor's desk, in the pharmacist's hands, folded carefully in your own pocket like something fragile and alive. That's joke number 1. Discovering your well-being now fits on paper. The pharmacy smells different from the doctor's office. Less antiseptic, more dust and wood polish. The pharmacist knows you now. Not personally, professionally. He doesn't ask unnecessary questions. He reads the prescription, fills it, slides the package across the counter with practiced neutrality. This is still legal, still clean, still respectable. Here's the widely known historical reality unfolding under your feet. In the years after the war, pharmaceutical distribution expanded rapidly, but record-keeping lagged behind. Prescriptions were handwritten, easily duplicated, loosely tracked. Historians still debate how much this administrative softness enabled dependency to grow unnoticed. Standing at the counter, package warm in your hand, it feels less like a loophole and more like an invitation. You begin to plan your routes around availability. Which pharmacy stocks reliably? Which hours are quiet? Which clerks don't linger on your name? It feels efficient, almost satisfying, like optimizing supply lines. Something you're already trained for. That's joke number 2, turning addiction into logistics. At first, you don't change the dose. You just make sure there's no gap. No unexpected delay. The anxiety of maybe running out is worse than the ache itself. Knowing you're covered smooths your thoughts in a way the drug alone no longer does. You notice that you feel calmer even before you take anything. Just knowing it's there, near, accessible, eases the tight coil in your chest. Control, you realize, is intoxicating. Work becomes something you tolerate rather than engage with. You do what's asked, nothing more, nothing less. Ambition feels unnecessary now. You've already survived the part of life that required ambition. Everything else feels optional. Here's a lesser-known truth that appears again and again in personal accounts. Many veterans described a sense of afterwards. A belief that their meaningful life had already happened. Historians still debate how much this outlook fed post-war addiction. Sitting there, watching the clock crawl toward the next acceptable window. The future feels vague and unimportant. One afternoon, the pharmacist hesitates. Just a second. He squints at the paper. Then at you. Your stomach tightens instantly. The moment stretches. Thin and dangerous. Then he stamps it and moves on. Relief floods you. Not the warm chemical kind. But something sharper. More emotional. Your hands shake faintly as you tuck the package away. You tell yourself you're overreacting. That's joke number 3. Mistaking fear for imagination. You start spacing doses differently now. Not more, just smarter. Smaller amounts. More often. Smoother coverage. You congratulate yourself on the restraint. This feels like improvement. Like maturity. Your body disagrees quietly. When the drug wears thin, the ache pushes closer than before. Not just in your leg now, your back, your shoulders, even your jaw feel tight and irritated. Your stomach churns for no clear reason. You feel cold and hot at the same time. A thin sweat prickling at your hairline. You recognize these sensations, dimly, as something new. Not pain. Not absence. Demand. Historians still debate when physical withdrawal truly begins. The symptoms overlap with stress, fatigue, trauma. It's easy to misread. Lying there, skin crawling faintly. You don't name it. Naming would make it real. So you correct it. You take another careful measure. And the world settles again. Not fully, but enough. Your relationships begin to thin around the edges. You miss meetings. You forget conversations. You cancel plans with believable excuses. No one challenges you. Everyone is tired after the war. Everyone is rebuilding. That's joke number 4. Hiding in plain exhaustion. At night, you sit alone more often. Lamp turned low, listening to the hum of the city settling into sleep. You don't read much anymore. Stories feel unnecessary. Your own internal narrative has become repetitive enough. Dose. Relief. Waiting. You tell yourself this is temporary. A phase. Something you'll handle once the world feels stable again. But the world is stable now. And the problem hasn't gone anywhere. Here's the uncomfortable realization that settles in quietly. Without drama. You're no longer managing pain. You're managing access. The medicine isn't just a solution, it's infrastructure. And you've built your days around it so carefully that imagining life without it feels less like recovery and more like collapse. You lie back, warmth spreading just enough to take the edge off the demand. Your breathing slows. Your thoughts soften. For now, everything is under control. For now, the paper still works. And as long as it does, you tell yourself, there's no reason to change anything at all. You start noticing how many men walk the streets like you do. Not obviously broken, not begging, just slowed, a little stiff, a little distant. They stand too still at corners. They flinch at sharp sounds they pretend not to hear. Their eyes carry the same tired calculation you see in your own reflection, measuring effort, measuring tolerance, deciding what today will cost. That's joke number 1. Realizing you're part of a crowd you never signed up for. The newspapers call it a nation healed. Victory, recovery, progress. Factories hum, streets fill. Flags still hang in some windows. Faded but stubborn. The language is triumphant, but the bodies don't quite match the headlines. Here's the widely known historical backdrop settling in around you. After the war, entire cities were filled with veterans carrying visible and invisible injuries. Less widely discussed is how common chemical comfort became among them. Morphine, heroin, laudanum, legal, prescribed, normalized. Historians still debate whether post-war addiction was an epidemic or an inevitability. Walking past men whose steps echo your own. It feels like both. You overhear fragments of conversation in cafes and waiting rooms. Complaints about sleep, about nerves, about pain that doesn't respond to rest. Names of doctors are traded quietly. Like tips rather than confessions. No one uses the word addiction. That word belongs to criminals and moral failures. Not men with medals in their drawers. You don't talk much. Listening feels safer. Your routine tightens further. You know exactly how much you have. Exactly how long it will last if nothing goes wrong. You start thinking in terms of buffers. Extra paper. Extra supply. Insurance against disruption. The language of logistics has fully taken over your inner world. That's joke number 2. Applying wartime thinking to peacetime survival. One afternoon, you run into someone you recognize from service. His face lights up briefly, then dims, as if unsure which version of you he's allowed to greet. You exchange pleasantries. He mentions trouble sleeping. You nod. You mention aches. He nods. The conversation circles something unspoken, then moves away. Neither of you suggests solutions. You both already know them. Historians still debate how silence shaped this period, how shared suffering became private coping. Sitting there, stirring cold coffee you won't drink, you understand why no one talks. Talking doesn't help, access does. Your own body has become more insistent. The moments between doses feel sharper now, less forgiving. It's not just pain or irritability, it's a full body unease. Like your nerves are all tuned slightly too high. Your skin feels tight. Your stomach clenches without warning. Your thoughts feel crowded, restless. You correct it quickly. You've learned that letting it build only makes everything worse. That's joke number 3, becoming very good at prevention. You notice, with mild concern, that the relief doesn't feel as warm as it used to. It still works, but it works like a switch now. Not a blanket. Off becomes on becomes tolerable. There's no glow anymore, just function. You tell yourself this is progress. Your world continues to narrow. Not dramatically. You still go out, still speak to people, still appear normal enough, but your attention is always split, half on the present moment, half on the quiet countdown ticking somewhere inside you. You start missing things, appointments, conversations, small obligations that once felt important. You apologize easily, convincingly. People forgive easily, too. Everyone is distracted these days. Everyone is tired. That's joke number 4. Disappearing a little at a time without anyone noticing. At night, you lie awake and listen to the city breathe. Distant footsteps, a train whistle, the low murmur of life continuing without checking in on you. You think about how many other rooms hold men doing the same thing, lying still, managing their bodies, waiting for morning. Here's a lesser-known historical truth that historians still argue over. Many post-war addicts didn't see themselves as addicts at all. They saw themselves as casualties who found a workable truce. Sitting there, relief holding you together just enough. That description feels accurate. You're not chasing pleasure. You're maintaining peace. And in a nation built on monuments to sacrifice, maintenance doesn't feel shameful. It feels practical, necessary. You drift towards sleep eventually. Not because you're tired, but because the drug has done its job and there's nothing left to manage for a few hours. The world will still be there in the morning. The paper will still matter. The routines will still hold. And for now, that feels like enough. You tell yourself, quietly, convincingly, that this isn't a collapse. It's just how a wounded country learns to stand. The first real break comes without drama. No shouting. No confrontation. Just a calm, almost apologetic sentence delivered across a desk. We'll need to reassess your prescription. The doctor doesn't look unkind when he says it. He looks tired, overworked. A man balancing too many quiet problems with not enough approved solutions. He talks about new guidance, about concern from above, about responsibility. The words float politely between you, but none of them land where they're meant to. What lands is reassess. That's joke number 1. Discovering that one word can feel like a threat. You nod. Of course you do. You nod like someone who understands. Like someone who isn't already calculating how long they have left. The dose today is smaller. Not drastically, just enough to make the difference obvious. The warmth arrives, but it stops short again. The edge remains. Your jaw stays tight. Your thoughts don't quite slow. You thank him anyway. Outside, the street feels louder than it should. The sunlight feels too sharp. Your clothes itch against your skin. The walk home feels longer, each step carrying a faint urgency that has nowhere to go. This is a widely known turning point in post-war history, as addiction quietly expanded. Authorities began tightening access. Regulations increased. Oversight followed. Historians still debate whether these measures helped or simply pushed dependency into darker corners. Walking home with half relief buzzing uselessly through you. The debate feels painfully abstract. By afternoon, the familiar unease spreads faster than before. Not just pain now, restlessness. Your muscles twitch. Your stomach tightens and loosens in unpleasant cycles. Your thoughts run faster, then stall, then run again. You try waiting it out. That lasts maybe an hour. You pace your room. You sit. You stand. Nothing fits. The quiet you once borrowed feels impossibly far away, like something you dreamed instead of lived. That's joke number 2. Realizing patience has become a physical impossibility. You check what you have left. The calculation tightens your chest. Enough for today, maybe tomorrow, if you're careful. After that, uncertain. The word settles in your gut and stays there. Here's a lesser-known truth historians still struggle to quantify. The moment prescriptions were restricted, many patients experienced withdrawal without understanding what it was. Symptoms overlapped with trauma, illness, exhaustion. Naming the problem lagged behind suffering. Sitting there, skin prickling, leg aching, heart thudding a little too fast. You don't name it either. You just know it's wrong. You try distraction. Reading doesn't work. Noise doesn't help. Silence is unbearable. You feel trapped inside your own body. Every nerve lit up like it's waiting for orders that never come. Finally, you take another dose. Smaller than you want, larger than you planned. The relief is immediate, but incomplete. It takes the worst edge off, but leaves behind a hollow ache that hums quietly, like a generator running low on fuel. That's joke number 3. Discovering relief can arrive broken. Evening brings no comfort. Sleep refuses to cooperate. Your legs won't settle. Your thoughts loop around the same small fears, magnifying them until they feel enormous. What if the doctor cuts you off entirely? What if the paper stops working? What if this feeling, is the new normal? You've survived worse questions in your life. But those questions had answers you could act on. These don't. Here's the truth you don't want to look at yet. Your reliance is no longer optional. It's structural. Your body doesn't remember how to function without chemical permission. Historians still debate whether dependence was inevitable given the circumstances. Sitting there in the dark, skin crawling faintly, you don't debate anything. You just want the sensation to stop. Morning arrives with no reset. You feel worse, not better. Stiff, irritable, hollowed out. Your reflection looks unfamiliar, eyes duller, posture guarded, like you're bracing for impact that hasn't happened yet. You return to the doctor's office anyway, hoping for reassurance. You don't get it. He repeats the policy. He talks about tapering. He uses the phrase for your own good. You nod again. but something inside you has shifted. That's joke number 4. Realizing obedience doesn't guarantee safety. You leave with less than you came for and more fear than you've had since the war ended. The rules have changed, quietly, permanently. And for the first time since this began, you understand something with absolute clarity. This system, the doctors, the paper, the polite nods, was never designed to support you forever. It was designed to end. And when it does, you're the one left holding the consequences. You walk home slowly, steps heavy, mind racing. The medicine hasn't failed you. The world has simply decided. It's done pretending you need it. And you have no idea what comes next. The street version doesn't look like you expected. There's no dark alley revelation. No dramatic figure beckoning from the shadows. It's quieter than that, more ordinary. A man leaning against a brick wall near the train tracks. A name passed casually in a low voice. A place you're told to wait. Not too early, not too late. That's joke number 1. Discovering the fall doesn't come with a soundtrack. You tell yourself this is temporary. A bridge between prescriptions. A workaround until the rules loosen again. You're not becoming anything, you're adapting. You've done that before. Adaptation kept you alive once. The first purchase feels unreal. Coins exchange hands. No paperwork. No nodding authority. Just a small parcel wrapped in paper that feels lighter than it should for something carrying so much weight. Your hand closes around it instinctively, like it already knows what to do. Your heart races, not from fear. Exactly, from recognition. Here's a well-known historical shift happening right under your feet. As medical access tightened in the early 1920s, heroin use didn't disappear, it moved. Out of clinics and into streets, homes, and hidden routines. Historians still debate whether this transition caused more harm or simply revealed what was already there. Standing there with the packet warm in your palm, the debate feels academic. You don't use it right away. You walk, you breathe, you tell yourself you're still in control. The city hums around you, unaware that a line has just been crossed so quietly no one noticed. When you finally do it, alone, door locked, curtains drawn, the relief is immediate and overwhelming. Stronger than the measured doses you'd grown used to. Less refined, less predictable, but powerful. Your shoulders drop, your thoughts scatter and then soften. The ache retreats so fast it's almost funny. That's joke number 2. Laughing softly at how fast your body forgives everything. But the relief feels different now. It's sharper, less stable. The warmth comes with an edge. Like it might tip too far if you're not careful. You sit very still, breathing slowly, letting it settle. You promise yourself you'll be cautious. Smaller amounts, less often, just enough to function. You've made promises like this before. And they sounded reasonable then too. The hours that follow blur. Not in a dramatic way, just softened. Time loses its definition. When the warmth fades, it does so unevenly, leaving pockets of irritation and restlessness behind. You correct them instinctively, almost without thinking. That's joke number 3, acting before deciding. You notice the differences quickly. The street version is inconsistent. Sometimes stronger, sometimes weaker. Sometimes carrying a strange aftertaste that makes your stomach twist. Your body reacts in ways you don't fully recognize yet: sweats, chills, a faint nausea that comes and goes. Historians still debate how purity and variability accelerated dependency in this era. Living it, you don't need the explanation. You feel the instability directly. Your routine adjusts again. You learn new schedules, new faces, new rules. Silence becomes more important than ever. You don't talk about this with anyone, not even yourself. Naming it would make it permanent. You start spending money differently. Less on food, less on small comforts, more on certainty. You tell yourself it balances out. It doesn't. Sleep becomes erratic. Sometimes you collapse into it. Sometimes it avoids you entirely. Your dreams grow sharper, stranger, half trench, half hallway, always leading somewhere you never quite reach. That's joke number 4. Dreaming of movement while standing still. You think about the doctor less now. The office feels distant, almost fictional. The world has simplified itself into fewer variables. Relief, absence, access. The country continues rebuilding. Streets fill, shops open. People talk about the future like it's something solid you can plan for. You nod along when required. But the words slide past you. Your future has shrunk to the size of your pocket. And as you sit there in the dim light, warmth settling in again after another quiet correction, one truth settles alongside it, clear, undeniable, and heavy. You didn't leave the system. The system changed around you. And now you're living in the version that doesn't pretend to be temporary anymore. This isn't medicine. It's survival. And survival, you're learning, doesn't care how you get there. Only that you keep going. For now, you do. One quiet transaction at a time. Shame doesn't arrive all at once. It seeps in slowly, like damp through a wall you didn't realize was cracked. At first, it's just caution. You double-check locks. You lower your voice instinctively. Even when you're alone, you become aware of how your hands move, how long you hold someone's gaze, how carefully you place objects back where they belong. That's joke number 1. Learning to behave like you're already guilty. The street routine hardens quickly. There are rules now, unspoken but absolute. Don't ask questions. Don't linger. Don't return too soon. Don't bring attention. You follow them with the same discipline you once followed orders shouted through smoke. You're good at this. Here's a historical truth that often gets flattened into statistics. As heroin moved into informal networks, it developed its own culture of silence. Historians still debate how much this secrecy protected users and how much it isolated them. Living inside it, you feel both effects at once. You stop carrying the packet openly. It's hidden now, tucked into seams, folded into paper that looks like nothing. You check it more often than you need to, just to confirm it's still there. The reassurance is immediate, physical. You tell yourself this isn't obsession. It's preparedness. At home, you move carefully, quietly. You avoid letting anyone see how deliberate your actions have become. The ritual matters now: how you prepare, how you measure, how you clean up afterward. Precision feels like morality. Sloppiness feels dangerous. That's joke number 2. Mistaking carefulness for virtue. Your body has changed again. The relief still comes, but it's less generous. It doesn't wrap around you anymore, it presses down. Firm and insistent. The absence, when it arrives, is sharper than ever. Your muscles tense, your skin crawls, your stomach flips unpredictably. You don't wait it out anymore. You correct it early. Historians still debate when users began to self-administer in ways that escalated risk. The line between management and compulsion blurs easily when the alternative feels unbearable. Sitting there, correcting the edge before it cuts too deep. You don't see risk, you see prevention. You notice you're lying more now. Not grand lies, small ones. Delays, excuses, not feeling well, running late. Next time, the lies come easily, sliding into conversation without friction. What surprises you is how little they bother you. That's joke number 3. Discovering dishonesty can feel efficient. You avoid mirrors more often. Not deliberately, you just don't seek them out. When you do catch your reflection, something feels off. Not wrong, exactly. Just guarded. Your eyes look busy, even when you're standing still. Sleep is unreliable. Some nights you sink into it hard and fast. Other nights, you hover on the edge. Thoughts looping in tight circles. You dream of hiding things, packages, notes, objects you can't quite identify, always with the sense that someone is just about to notice. You wake tense, jaw clenched, already tired. Here's a lesser-known historical detail that surfaces uncomfortably now. Many early users described a growing sense of social withdrawal long before legal consequences appeared. Historians still debate whether isolation was a cause or an effect. Sitting there alone in the dim light, you feel the walls press closer without moving. You stop talking to certain people, not because you dislike them, but because conversation feels risky. Every interaction is a potential question you don't want to answer. It's easier to keep your world small and predictable. The irony isn't lost on you. You survived a war by relying on others. You're surviving this by cutting yourself off. That's joke number 4. Learning the opposite lesson too late. One afternoon, you misjudge a dose. Just slightly. The warmth comes on too fast. Too strong. Your head swims. Your heart stutters briefly before settling into a heavy rhythm. You sit very still, breathing slowly, waiting for your body to agree with the situation. It does. Eventually. The incident scares you, but only enough to make you more careful. Not enough to make you stop. Fear, like everything else now, is managed rather than confronted. You clean up meticulously afterward. You wash your hands longer than necessary. You check the door twice. You sit and listen to your own breathing until it slows. You tell yourself this was a mistake. You don't tell yourself it was a warning. Historians still debate when addiction becomes identity. When behavior stops being something you do and starts being something you organize around. Lying there in the quiet, routine restored, you understand the shift intuitively. Your days are no longer about work or rest or connection. They're about not being seen. Not by authorities. Not by family. Not by yourself. You're still functioning. Still surviving, still moving through the world without raising alarms. But the space you occupy has shrunk to something narrow and carefully controlled. And as you settle into the familiar warmth once more, one thought drifts through you, soft, unsettling, and quickly pushed aside. You didn't just hide the drug. You hid yourself with it. For now. That feels safer than being found. Your body stops asking politely. That's the first real change you can't explain away. The discomfort no longer waits its turn. It arrives early, loud, and insistent, like a creditor who's tired of reminders. You wake with a tight knot in your stomach, skin prickling as if a cold draft is passing through you from the inside. You don't stretch anymore. Stretching makes it worse. That's joke number 1. Learning stillness can hurt less than movement. Hunger has become a strange, unreliable signal. Sometimes it's there, sharp and hollow. Other times it disappears completely, replaced by a dull nausea that has nothing to do with food. You eat because you remember you should, not because your body asks. Your hands shake in the mornings now. Not violently, just enough to be inconvenient. Enough to notice when you pour water, when you button a shirt, when you light a match and have to shield the flame with your palm. You tell yourself it's nerves. You've told yourself worse lies and believed them. Here's a historical detail that rarely gets described from the inside. Early withdrawal doesn't feel like sickness at first. It feels like the body recalibrating and doing it badly. Historians still debate how often these symptoms were misread as anxiety or exhaustion. Standing there, hands unsteady, you don't feel anxious, you feel off. The demand builds quietly through the morning. Your muscles tighten, your jaw aches from clenching without realizing it. Your thoughts fragment into short, irritable pieces that refuse to connect. Sounds irritate you. Light feels wrong. You correct it sooner than planned. Relief comes, but it's brief, shallow, like a wave that breaks before reaching shore. The absence pulls back just enough to let you breathe, but it doesn't retreat the way it used to. Your body seems to remember what it's missing even while it's being given. That's joke number 2. Discovering satisfaction has stopped returning your calls. You try increasing the dose slightly, telling yourself it's an experiment. The result is uneven, too much in one place, not enough in another. Your head feels heavy while your legs remain restless. The warmth comes, but it's sloppy, unfocused. You don't enjoy it. That realization lands with more weight than you expect. Here's a lesser-known truth from personal accounts of the time. Many users reported the moment they stopped enjoying the drug long before they stopped needing it. Historians still debate how this altered the psychology of addiction. Sitting there, uncomfortable despite the dose, you understand it instantly. You're no longer chasing a feeling. You're chasing silence. The afternoons become the worst. The hours stretch thin, brittle. You watch the clock not with anticipation, but with dread, counting how long until the discomfort crosses from tolerable to unavoidable. You cancel plans. You avoid errands. Anything that requires sustained attention feels impossible. You tell yourself you're conserving energy. That's joke number 3, calling retreat a strategy. Your sleep fractures further. You fall asleep exhausted and wake an hour later drenched in sweat. Heart pounding softly like it's running without you. Your sheets twist around your legs as if they're trying to restrain you. When you do sleep, the dreams are sharp and joyless. Always about searching, hiding, waiting. You wake more tired than when you lay down. Your reflection surprises you one morning. Not because you look terrible, because you look different. Thinner, tighter. Your eyes scan your own face as if they're checking for something missing. You don't linger. Historians still debate how early physical dependence reshaped self-perception. From the inside, it feels like a quiet erosion. Nothing dramatic is taken away. Things just stop being offered back. You start timing doses closer together. Smaller amounts. More frequently. You tell yourself it's safer this way. Controlled. Responsible. The logic feels sound when you don't examine it too closely. Your body responds by demanding more often. That's joke number 4. Learning negotiation only works one way. You try going without one evening. Just to see. The experiment lasts less than an hour. Your skin crawls. Your stomach knots painfully. Your thoughts spiral into a tight, panicked loop that feels alarmingly familiar. This isn't pain. This is need. The correction is immediate. The relief shallow but necessary. You sit very still afterward. Breathing slowly. Heart easing back into something manageable. You don't feel ashamed in that moment. You feel relieved. And that's when the truth finally settles in. Undeniable and heavy. Your body has learned hunger. Not the kind you satisfy with food. Not the kind that fades if you wait. A hunger that rewrites priorities. That sharpens attention around a single absence. That doesn't care about plans, promises, or pride. You didn't choose this hunger. But it has chosen you. And now, every day begins and ends with the same quiet calculation. How long until it comes back? And what will you give? To keep it away? The law doesn't knock when it arrives. It clears its throat. New words begin appearing in the newspapers: control, regulation, public safety. They sit beside articles about reconstruction and prosperity, printed in the same confident typeface, as if they belong together. You skim them at first, then read them more carefully, feeling your stomach tighten with each paragraph. Restrictions. Registries. Penalties. That's joke number 1. Realizing danger can be written in polite language. You hear about it before it touches you directly. A pharmacist refusing a familiar face. A doctor suddenly cautious to the point of coldness. A rumor that certain prescriptions are being audited. Another that names are being recorded. Compared. Followed up. The tone shifts everywhere at once. Not hostile, official. Here's the widely recognized historical turning point sliding into place. In the early 1920s, governments began reframing addiction as a legal problem rather than a medical one. The Harrison Act in the United States is the name most historians cite, though its effects rippled far beyond borders. Historians still debate whether these laws aimed to help or to control. Living through the transition, you feel the intent change before you understand it. The first time it affects you personally is almost anticlimactic. You go to the pharmacy with paper you know will no longer work. The pharmacist reads it twice. He looks at you longer than usual. He sighs, not unkindly, and slides it back. "I can't," he says. No explanation, no argument, just a boundary where there wasn't one before. Your chest tightens, sharp and sudden. You manage a nod, mumble something polite, and step back into the street with the paper still in your hand. Now useless. That's joke number 2. Discovering permission can expire without warning. The street version becomes more important overnight. Not optional anymore, essential. The routes feel riskier now. The faces more watchful. Prices shift unpredictably. Quality varies even more wildly. Everyone is tense. Operating under the same unspoken understanding, attention is dangerous. You adapt quickly. You always do. You change meeting spots. You change times. You stop carrying anything you don't absolutely need. You rehearse explanations you hope never to give. Your heart beats faster in public spaces now. Not from guilt exactly, but from calculation. Historians still debate how prohibition accelerated harm by pushing users into unsafe practices. From the inside, the acceleration feels obvious. Everything is rushed now. There's no room for patience. You take what you can get when you can get it. Because tomorrow is uncertain in a way it wasn't before. Your body notices the instability immediately. The demand sharpens. The discomfort arrives faster and harder. No longer content with gentle reminders. You wake sweating, stomach clenched, muscles twitching like they're receiving mixed signals. You correct it when you can. When you can't, you endure. That's joke number 3. Discovering endurance has a very short fuse. You hear stories, quiet ones. Men arrested, clinics shut down, doctors fined for overprescribing. The language hardens. Patients become users. Treatment becomes supply. Care becomes complicity. You stop thinking of yourself as someone being helped. You start thinking of yourself as someone being watched. The fear changes shape. It's not about pain anymore, it's about exposure. You worry about neighbors, about landlords, about anyone with a reason to look too closely. You rehearse what you'd say if questioned. You don't rehearse stopping. That option feels abstract now. Like a theory that doesn't apply to real bodies. Here's a lesser-known historical detail that deepens the trap. Early laws often criminalized possession without offering effective treatment alternatives. Historians still debate whether this was oversight or intent. Sitting there, stomach knotting as you wait for a delayed meeting, the answer feels painfully clear. The law hasn't removed the hunger. It's just removed the safety rails. Your routines tighten further. You use alone now whenever possible. You clean obsessively. You hide evidence more carefully. The ritual has shifted from comfort to camouflage. That's joke number 4, turning survival into concealment. One night, you hear boots outside your building, just footsteps. Probably nothing, but your heart slams hard enough to make you dizzy. You sit frozen in the dark, breathing shallowly, listening until the sound fades. It takes a long time for your hands to stop shaking. You realize something then, with a clarity that chills you more than fear ever did. The war taught you how to live under threat. Addiction taught you how to live under need. Now the law has taught you how to live under suspicion. And suspicion is everywhere. You didn't choose to become an outlaw. You didn't wake up one morning deciding to break rules. The rules moved, quietly, and left you standing on the wrong side of them. As you settle into the uneasy calm that follows a successful correction, warmth thin but sufficient, you understand the shape of your world now. It's smaller, tighter, less forgiving. And for the first time, the thing you rely on to survive is also the thing that could ruin you. You lie back and close your eyes. Not in peace, but in temporary truce. The law has turned the key. And you're on the wrong side of the door. The first time you try to stop, you don't call it stopping. You call it waiting, just a little longer. An experiment, proof that you still have a say in this arrangement. You wake up and decide, quietly, privately, That you won't correct the discomfort right away. You'll see how far you can go. Your body notices immediately. Not with drama, with precision. A chill runs through you even though the room isn't cold. Your stomach tightens, then loosens, then tightens again, like it's practicing for something. Your skin feels wrong, as if it no longer fits properly. You pull the blanket tighter and feel no comfort from it at all. That's joke number 1. Discovering blankets don't negotiate. You tell yourself this is nerves. Anyone would feel anxious after the way the law has changed things. You breathe slowly, counting the inhales the way you once counted seconds between artillery rounds. That used to help. It doesn't now. Your legs won't stay still. Muscles twitch, then ache, then twitch again. Your jaw clenches hard enough to hurt. Sweat breaks out along your back. Cool and unpleasant. You check the clock, surprised by how little time has passed. 15 minutes. Here's a historical truth often smoothed over in textbooks. Early withdrawal was frequently misunderstood. Even by those experiencing it. Historians still debate how many people believed they were simply ill, weak, or losing their minds, sitting there, heart racing without cause. You don't think withdrawal, you think something is wrong. The hours stretch thin and brittle. Sounds irritate you. Light feels invasive. Your thoughts fragment, racing ahead and then stalling in tight, unpleasant loops. You try lying down, you try standing, nothing fits. Every position feels like the wrong answer. That's joke number 2. Learning there's no correct way to exist without it. By midday, the discomfort has a voice. Not words, sensations. A deep, crawling agitation under your skin. A hollow ache in your gut that feels urgent and personal. Your body is no longer hinting. It's insisting. You try to eat. The food sits like an insult in your stomach. You push it away and feel a wave of nausea for your trouble. You sip water and feel it slosh uncomfortably. Doing nothing to help. Sweat beads along your hairline. You feel both hot and cold. Shivering one moment and flushed the next. Your shirt sticks to your back. You change it, then change it again, irritated at the effort. Historians still debate how early users described this phase. Some called it flu-like. Others called it torture. Living it, you find the comparisons unhelpful. This isn't illness. It's absence made physical. You last longer than you thought you would. Pride flickers briefly, thin and fragile. Maybe you can do this. Maybe the worst is already here and you're still standing. Then the cramps start. Deep, twisting pains in your abdomen that fold you forward without asking. Your legs ache with a restless, electric misery that makes you want to run and lie down at the same time. Your heart pounds, uneven and loud in your ears. That's joke number 3. Discovering bravery has a breaking point. You don't make a dramatic decision. You don't give a speech to yourself. You simply reach for what you've been avoiding. Hands shaking so badly you almost drop it. The relief is immediate. Violently immediate. Your body exhales like it's been underwater too long. The cramps loosen. The crawling agitation retreats just enough to let you breathe. Your heart slows from a gallop to a heavy trot. You sag where you are. Overwhelmed not by pleasure, but by relief so intense it borders on gratitude. And then comes the part that stays with you. Not guilt. Not shame. Understanding. Here's a lesser-known historical detail that surfaces in personal letters and diaries. Many early addicts described their first withdrawal attempt as the moment they stopped believing they could quit at will. Historians still debate whether this belief was ever realistic. Sitting there, body settling back into fragile balance. You know something has shifted permanently. You didn't fail a test. You learned the rules. This isn't about wanting anymore. It's about avoiding that. The memory of the hours without relief lodges itself deep inside you. Vivid and sharp, your body catalogs it carefully, like a warning etched into nerve and muscle. Don't do that again. You clean up slowly, deliberately, as if ritual might restore dignity. Your hands tremble as the last of the sweat dries on your skin. You lie back and stare at the ceiling, exhausted in a way sleep won't fix. Outside, the day continues. People move, shops open, life pretends nothing important has happened. But something has. You don't tell anyone about this attempt. There's nothing to gain by sharing it. You don't even tell yourself you'll try again tomorrow. That thought feels reckless now. That's joke number 4. Mistaking survival for surrender. As evening settles in, warmth thin but sufficient, you understand the shape of your situation with brutal clarity. You're no longer choosing the drug. You're choosing not to experience the absence. And that choice has consequences that stretch far beyond today. You lie there, breathing slowly, listening to your body stabilize. The lesson has been delivered. And your body, ever efficient, has learned it perfectly. Work becomes a negotiation you keep losing. Not all at once, not dramatically. It starts with mornings that take longer to assemble. You wake already tired, joints aching, stomach unsettled, head buzzing with a low, irritable static. You tell yourself you'll be fine once you get moving. You always tell yourself that. Movement doesn't help anymore. That's joke number 1. Discovering effort no longer earns relief. You arrive late one day. Just 10 minutes. No explanation offered. No questions asked. The next week, it's 15, then half an hour. Each delay feels justified in the moment. Your body needed it. Your nerves were shot. Something came up. All true, in their own way. But truth doesn't keep time. Your hands shake more often now. Especially in the hours before you correct the discomfort. You hide it by keeping them busy, sorting, carrying, adjusting. When you can't, you tuck them into pockets and hope no one notices. They do. Your focus slips first. Tasks that once took minutes now stretch out awkwardly. You lose your place. You reread instructions. You forget what you were just doing. Someone asks you a question and you answer it a second too late. The pause hanging in the air like an accusation. That's joke number 2. Learning silence can be louder than mistakes. Here's a widely documented historical reality. Post-war labor didn't make room for fragility. Factories wanted efficiency. Offices wanted reliability. There were more men than jobs. And sympathy was a luxury no one could afford. Historians still debate how many veterans quietly fell out of the workforce during this period. Sitting there, heart racing as you struggle to concentrate, you feel yourself edging toward that invisible exit. You try to compensate. You stay later when you can. You volunteer for tasks that don't require precision. You smile more than necessary. You apologize preemptively. It helps for a while. But your body keeps interfering. The hunger comes earlier now. Louder. You feel it creeping in during meetings, during conversations, during moments that require composure. Your skin crawls. Your jaw tightens. Your thoughts narrow until all you can hear is the internal countdown. You correct it when you can. Sometimes you can't. On those days, you feel like you're moving through the world underwater. Everything is slower, heavier. Your patience snaps without warning. You catch yourself glaring at nothing in particular. Breath shallow. Muscles coiled. That's joke number 3. Being angry without an object. A supervisor pulls you aside one afternoon. His voice is careful, neutral. He asks if everything is all right. He mentions performance, reliability, concerns. You nod, agree, promise improvement. You mean it. But promises don't quiet your nervous system. Here's a lesser-known historical detail that doesn't make it into official records. Many early addicts lost work not through dramatic firings, but through attrition, missed days, quiet demotions, hours reduced until there was nothing left to reduce. Historians still debate how many lives unraveled this way. Standing there, nodding earnestly, you feel the ground thinning under your feet. Money tightens next. You don't starve. You adjust. Fewer meals. Cheaper food. Less heat. More calculation. You tell yourself it's temporary. Everything has been temporary so far. But the costs you can't cut are the ones that matter most. You start making choices you wouldn't have considered before. Skipping one bill to cover another. Borrowing small amounts you promise yourself you'll repay. Selling things that once felt important but now just feel extra. That's joke number 4. Discovering priorities rearrange themselves. Your world shrinks further. Work drains you. Using stabilizes you. Everything else feels optional. Social invitations go unanswered. Letters sit unopened. You tell yourself you'll respond when things calm down. Things don't calm down. You catch a glimpse of yourself in a window one evening and barely recognize the posture, shoulders hunched slightly. Gaze scanning. Movements economical and guarded. You look like someone who is constantly bracing for interruption. You are. Sleep offers no reset anymore. You wake exhausted. Dreams tangled and unsatisfying. Sometimes you dream of being late. Sometimes you dream of searching for something you can't name. You always wake before finding it. Your body has become a workplace hazard. Not visibly. Not dramatically. Just enough to make you unreliable. And unreliability, you're learning, is unforgivable. As the days grind on, one realization settles in quietly. Without panic. The drug didn't make you lose your job. It just made it impossible to pretend you were the same person who once had it. You lie back at night. Warmth thin but sufficient. Muscles easing just enough to let you breathe. Tomorrow, you'll try again. Tomorrow, you'll do better. You always do. Right up until you don't. And somewhere deep in your body, beneath the calculations and corrections, you feel the slow, undeniable truth taking shape. This life isn't sustainable. Not because you can't survive it, but because surviving it takes everything else with it. Distance becomes your default setting. Not the dramatic kind where doors slam or voices rise. Just a gradual widening of space between you and everyone else. Like chairs being moved back 1 inch at a time until conversation becomes impractical. You still love your family. You're sure of that. You just don't know how to be near them anymore without feeling exposed. That's joke number 1. Discovering love doesn't require proximity, but withdrawal demands it. You visit when you can. Short visits. Carefully timed. You arrive already tired. Already managing the low hum of discomfort that sits just under your skin like a warning light. You smile. You nod. You answer questions with half-truths that sound reassuring enough not to invite follow-ups. How are you doing? Getting by. It's not a lie. It's just incomplete. You notice how closely people watch you now. Not suspiciously, concerned. A mother's eyes linger too long on your hands. A sibling pauses before asking a question, then decides against it. They sense something is off, but they don't know where to place it. Neither do you. Really. Here's a widely recognized but rarely personalized historical reality. Families after the war were expected to absorb returning soldiers back into normal life quickly. There was little patience for ongoing struggle. Historians still debate whether this expectation was compassion or denial. Sitting at the table, forcing yourself to eat a meal your stomach doesn't want. You feel the weight of that expectation pressing quietly on everyone present. The hunger interrupts the visit sooner than you hoped. Your leg aches. Your jaw tightens. Your thoughts narrow. You excuse yourself to the washroom, splashing water on your face, staring at your reflection like it might explain what's happening. It doesn't. That's joke number 2, expecting mirrors to offer answers. You correct it discreetly. You've learned how. Small, controlled, invisible. The relief comes quickly enough to save the moment. But it leaves you oddly hollow. The warmth doesn't make you feel closer to anyone. It just makes you capable of sitting still again. Conversation resumes. Laughter happens. You participate just enough to avoid questions. But something essential is missing. You're not with them. You're performing near them. Historians still debate whether addiction isolates people or whether isolation invites addiction. From the inside, the distinction collapses. The more you rely on the drug, the harder it becomes to tolerate the unpredictability of human connection. People ask questions. Bodies don't. You leave early. You always leave early. On the walk home, guilt settles in, heavy and familiar. Not the sharp kind that motivates change, the dull kind that just sits there. Taking up space. You tell yourself you'll visit longer next time. You tell yourself things will be easier when you're more stable. Stability keeps moving. That's joke number 3, chasing a finish line that keeps walking. Letters go unanswered now. Not out of cruelty. Out of fatigue. Each response feels like a commitment you're not sure you can keep. It's easier to let silence stand in for explanation. Your circle shrinks further. Fewer people mean fewer questions. Fewer questions mean fewer lies. You tell yourself this is kindness, sparing others worry. It feels reasonable. The drug remains your most reliable relationship. It doesn't misunderstand you. It doesn't ask where you've been or why you're late. It simply responds to need with effect. Consistent, predictable, quiet. That's joke number 4. Trusting the one thing that never asks how you're doing. One evening, a family member confronts you gently. Not accusingly. Gently. They say you seem tired. Different. They ask if you're unwell. The concern in their voice catches you off guard. For a moment, the truth rises dangerously close to the surface. You swallow it back down. You say you're fine, just adjusting. The war changed everyone. After all, this explanation works. It always does. The war is a convenient shadow. It explains everything and demands nothing. They nod, relieved to have a reason. The conversation moves on. You sit there, warmth holding you together, and feel something twist uncomfortably in your chest. Not shame. Loss. You've lost the ability to be honest without consequences. You've lost the ease of shared silence. You've lost the version of yourself who could sit with discomfort and still feel connected. The distance isn't just between you and them. It's between you and the person you used to be when closeness didn't feel dangerous. As night settles in, you return to your quiet room, your carefully controlled routines. You correct the hunger one more time and lie back, breathing slowly, letting the familiar heaviness settle. Tomorrow, you'll try again. You always do. But deep down, beneath the rituals and reassurances, you understand something with uncomfortable clarity. You're not drifting away from your family because you don't care. You're drifting because closeness now requires more of you than you can afford to give. And in a life where every day is already a negotiation with need, distance has become the safest compromise. For now, the clinics don't feel like places of healing. They feel like places of judgment wearing clean coats. You hear about them from other men in fragments, whispers traded the way warnings are traded. They lock the doors. They don't give you anything. They say it's for your own good. The stories are inconsistent, but the tone is always the same: grim, resigned, quietly afraid. That's joke number one. Discovering help has a reputation. Still, you go. Not because you're hopeful, because the alternatives are narrowing. Work has thinned. Family has grown distant. The law presses closer every month. You tell yourself you're being responsible. You're exploring options. You're doing what a sensible person would do. The building is spare and institutional, stripped of comfort on purpose. Benches instead of chairs. White walls that show every mark. The air smells faintly of disinfectant and old despair. You sit among others who look like you, tired, guarded, trying not to make eye contact. Here's a widely known historical reality refracted through a harsher lens. Early addiction clinics often treated dependence as moral failure rather than illness. Discipline over care, punishment over relief. Historians still debate whether this approach reflected ignorance or ideology. Sitting there, hands folded tightly in your lap, it feels like both. They take your name, they take your history, they take your dignity in small, efficient steps. Questions are asked without softness. Answers are recorded without comment. You mention pain, they nod. You mention sleep, they shrug. When you ask about easing the process, about something to take the edge off, the answer is immediate and final. No. That word lands harder than you expect. You're shown to a room that contains nothing comforting. A bed, a chair, a door that locks from the outside. They call it observation. They say it will pass. They don't say how. That's joke number two, being told endurance is treatment. The first hours are merely uncomfortable. You pace, you sit, you stand again. Your muscles tighten and loosen in restless waves. Sweat beads along your hairline, then chills you when it cools. Your stomach knots and releases like it's testing its limits. You tell yourself you've handled worse. By nightfall, your body disagrees. The hunger roars back without restraint. Your legs ache with a deep, electric misery that refuses to be soothed. Your skin crawls as if ants are moving beneath it. Your thoughts scatter, then collide, then scatter again. You call out once. No one comes. Historians still debate how withdrawal was understood in this era, whether suffering was seen as necessary purification or unfortunate side effect. Lying there, shaking despite yourself, the debate feels obscene. You sweat through your clothes. Then you shiver violently. Your stomach cramps hard enough to fold you in half. You retch, dry and painful, until your throat burns. There is no relief afterward, just exhaustion layered on top of need. That's joke number 3. Discovering there's no bottom to discomfort. Time dissolves. Minutes stretch into something elastic and cruel. Sleep flirts with you, then vanishes the moment you drift toward it. Your heart races, then slows, then races again, as if it can't decide what's dangerous. At some point, a staff member checks on you. He looks bored. He tells you to drink water. He tells you this is normal. He tells you it will pass. You want to believe him. By morning, you're no longer thinking about recovery. You're thinking about escape, about relief in any form, about how quickly you could make this stop if given the chance. This is the moment historians still argue about, the point where treatment hardened dependency rather than easing it. Sitting there, raw and shaking, you feel the truth without footnotes. You didn't learn resilience here. You learned terror. When they finally release you, days later, thinner, weaker, eyes hollow, you don't feel cured. You feel educated. Your body has memorized the experience in precise detail. Never again. That's the lesson. You walk out into daylight that feels too bright, too loud, too indifferent. Your hands tremble as you pull your coat tighter around yourself. Every nerve feels exposed, scraped raw. You don't tell anyone about the clinic. You don't need to. Your body tells you instead, every time discomfort whispers, that abstinence isn't just hard. It's unbearable. And as you make your way back toward the familiar routines, toward the quiet transactions and careful corrections, you understand something that settles heavy and permanent in your chest. Whatever hope you carried in with you didn't survive the treatment. What survived was fear. And fear, unlike hope, is very effective at keeping you exactly where you are. You don't come back the same. That's the quiet truth no one says out loud. You leave the clinic thinner, weaker, and technically sober, but something inside you has been rearranged. The world feels sharper now, louder, less forgiving. Your body moves as if it's waiting to be punished again. That's joke number 1, surviving treatment and learning nothing about safety. The first days out are a careful balance. You eat a little, you sleep in fragments, your nerves stay jumpy, like they've learned to expect an attack and don't want to be caught unprepared. Every ache feels suspicious. Every twinge sends your thoughts spiraling. You tell yourself this is healing. Healing, apparently, feels a lot like fear. Here's a historical reality that rarely gets spoken from the inside. Many early treatment programs focused on abstinence without aftercare. No support, no taper, no follow-up. Historians still debate whether relapse was inevitable under those conditions. Walking the streets again, body hollowed out and hyper-aware. Inevitability feels less like a theory and more like gravity. You try to work again. You really do. You show up early. You keep your head down. Your hands still shake slightly. But you hide them. Your focus comes and goes in short bursts. Some days, you manage. Other days, the noise in your head drowns out everything else. The hunger returns, not all at once, but in flashes, a tightening in your gut, a restless ache in your legs, a familiar whisper that says this would all stop if you just. You push it away. For a while, that works. That's joke number 2. Believing resistance is permanent. Your sleep remains unreliable. You wake soaked in sweat, heart racing, the memory of the clinic snapping into focus like it's happening again. Locked doors, dry retching, the sound of your own breathing echoing off walls that didn't care. You sit up in the dark, shaking, and wait for the sensation to pass. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. Food still tastes wrong. Your appetite is cautious, easily startled. You eat what you can. When you can, you tell yourself your body will relearn how to want things. Your body is learning something else instead. It's learning how much it misses relief. Historians still debate how memory and withdrawal intertwine. Whether the body remembers pain more vividly than pleasure. Sitting there, jaw clenched, you don't remember the warmth clearly anymore. You remember the absence, the terror of it, the depth, the duration. That memory is persuasive. You avoid places where you might run into familiar faces. You change your routes. You tell yourself it's about starting fresh. It's also about temptation. Seeing certain corners makes your chest tighten with recognition. You last longer than you expect. Days, then weeks. Each one feels earned the way rations once did, counted, guarded, celebrated quietly. You even feel a flicker of pride. Then something small goes wrong. A missed payment. A harsh word from a supervisor. A sleepless night that stretches into a sleepless morning. The stress stacks quickly, each piece pressing on the same thin place inside you. That's joke number 3. Discovering relapse doesn't need drama. You don't go looking. You just stop avoiding. The street is still there. The routine hasn't changed. The transaction is quicker than you remember. Your hands know what to do without instruction. The relief is immediate and devastating. Your body exhales in a way that feels almost painful with gratitude. The tension drains. The noise quiets. The world slips back into something manageable. And along with the relief comes understanding. You didn't fail because you're weak. You didn't fail because you didn't want recovery badly enough. You failed because fear won. Fear of withdrawal. Fear of the clinic. Fear of that long, screaming absence your body refuses to forget. Historians still debate whether early treatment methods increased relapse rates. Sitting there, warmth settling back into familiar grooves. You don't need statistics. You feel the answer settle into your bones. You don't feel happy. You feel safe. And safety, after everything you've endured, feels like the most powerful drug of all. You clean up carefully. You sit very still. You let your breathing slow. You tell yourself this is just a slip, a moment, something you can correct later. But your body is already relaxing into the old patterns, grateful to be spared another lesson in endurance. As night falls, you lie back and stare at the ceiling, feeling the familiar heaviness anchor you in place. The clinic tried to scare you straight. It succeeded. Just not in the way anyone hoped. Because now, more than ever, you know exactly what waits on the other side of stopping. And that knowledge has teeth. You close your eyes, letting the warmth hold you together for tonight. Tomorrow, you'll think about solutions. Tomorrow, you'll plan. For now, you're still here. And here, unfortunately, is the only place that feels survivable. By now, the cycle feels familiar enough to stop surprising you. Not comforting, just predictable. The relief, the guilt, the quiet promise to yourself that this time you'll be careful. You've said it so many times it no longer feels like a vow. It feels like background noise. That's joke number 1. Promises becoming furniture. Your body has settled into its expectations with unsettling efficiency. The hunger announces itself early and often. No longer content to wait politely. Your muscles tighten without warning. Your skin prickles as if you've brushed against something irritating. Even when you haven't moved. Your thoughts narrow, funneling everything toward a single solution. You correct it quickly now. Speed feels safer than restraint. Here's a historical detail that rarely gets emphasized. As heroin use became criminalized, users often escalated not because they wanted more pleasure, but because the margin for error shrank. Historians still debate how law enforcement pressure changed consumption patterns. Sitting there, correcting the discomfort before it can bloom into panic. The answer feels obvious. The relief still comes, but it's thinner now. Shorter. It no longer settles in your bones the way it once did. Instead, it passes through you quickly, leaving behind a restless aftertaste that demands attention sooner than you'd like. You adjust again, slightly more, slightly closer together, always justified, always framed as temporary. That's joke number 2. Living permanently in temporary measures. Your health starts slipping in quieter ways. Your stomach is unpredictable, sometimes clenched and painful, sometimes oddly numb. You develop a cough that lingers longer than it should. Your sleep grows lighter, more fractured, as if your body refuses to fully power down. You tell yourself it's stress. Everyone is stressed. The world is still rebuilding. You're just sensitive. You notice small infections linger. A cut that takes too long to heal. A sore throat that doesn't quite leave. Your body feels less resilient. Like it's running without backup systems. Historians still debate how much early drug use compromised immune response. Living inside it, you just feel tired, a deep, unshakable fatigue that sleep doesn't touch. Money tightens again. You juggle. You delay. You borrow small amounts you promise yourself you'll repay. The math always works in the moment. It's later that causes trouble. You start avoiding places that remind you of who you used to be. Old routes. Old cafes. Old habits. Nostalgia feels dangerous now. It asks questions you don't want to answer. That's joke number 3. Protecting yourself from memories. Your social world continues to thin. Not dramatically, no confrontations. No ultimatums. Just fewer invitations. Fewer check-ins. Fewer reasons to pretend everything is fine. You don't blame anyone. You wouldn't want to be around you either. Some nights, lying alone in the dim light, you feel a flicker of something like grief. Not for the life you have now, but for the one you can still remember clearly enough to miss. The version of you who could tolerate discomfort without negotiating with chemicals. The feeling passes. It always does. Here's a lesser-known truth buried in personal letters and case notes from the era. Many addicts described a period of emotional flattening, where sorrow and joy both dulled. Historians still debate whether this was caused by the drug or by the life built around it. Staring at the ceiling, neither sad nor content, you feel that flattening settle in. You're not miserable. You're just reduced. One evening, you misjudge again, not badly, just enough to feel the edges blur uncomfortably. Your heart races briefly. Your head swims. You sit very still, breathing slowly, waiting for your body to agree with your choices. It does. Eventually. The scare doesn't stop you. It just makes you more cautious, more precise, more alone. That's joke number 4, surviving warnings and calling it experience. As days turn into weeks, the future stops feeling like something you're moving toward. It feels like something you're managing around. Plans shrink. Ambitions flatten. Everything is calibrated to maintain a narrow band of tolerable existence. And you're good at it. That's the part that scares you most. If you let yourself think about it, you've adapted. Adaptation once saved your life. Now it's quietly erasing it. You lie back, warmth settling just enough to keep the worst sensations away. Your breathing slows. Your thoughts quiet. For tonight, everything is balanced again. But balance, you've learned, is just another word for delay. And delay is all this life seems to offer anymore. The war never gave you medals for endurance. This does. Quiet ones. Invisible ones. Every morning you wake up and manage to function counts as a small, private decoration pinned somewhere no one can see. You don't celebrate them. You don't even acknowledge them. You just keep collecting. That's joke number 1. Earning awards for staying vertical. Your days have a narrow rhythm now. Wake. Assess. Correct. Wait. Everything else fits into the spaces between those steps if there's room. If there isn't, it gets postponed indefinitely. You no longer ask whether you want to do something, only whether you can without upsetting the balance. Balance is fragile these days. You notice it in your body first. Your veins feel tender sometimes, sore in places you didn't expect. Your skin bruises more easily. You wake with aches that don't have a clear cause. As if your body is keeping score even when you aren't paying attention. Here's a historical detail that often gets buried under moral language. Long-term heroin use in this period frequently led to chronic infections, abscesses, and circulatory problems. Especially as quality and cleanliness declined. Historians still debate how much users understood these risks at the time. Sitting there, massaging a sore spot on your arm, you don't feel ignorant, you feel resigned. You start carrying small things for damage control. Cloth, alcohol, water. You tell yourself it's about hygiene, about being careful. Careful feels like responsibility now. That's joke number 2, mistaking mitigation for safety. Your energy is unreliable. Some mornings you wake with a strange, jittery alertness, like your body has burned through rest too quickly. Other days, exhaustion presses down on you so heavily that even standing feels optional. You learn to read these fluctuations the way you once read weather. Bad days mean fewer risks. Good days mean catching up. You stop thinking long-term entirely. Weeks feel abstract. Months don't exist. The future has compressed into a series of manageable intervals, each one ending with the same question: did I make it through today? Historians still debate whether addiction collapses time perception or whether collapsed futures invite addiction. Living it, the two feel inseparable. You cough more now. Not violently, just enough to be annoying. A dry, persistent sound that lingers longer than it should. You tell yourself it's the cold, or the damp, or the city air. Everyone coughs. You've stopped seeking reassurance from doctors. Clinics feel hostile now. Questions feel dangerous. You treat symptoms yourself, the way you treat everything else, quietly, privately, without witnesses. That's joke number 3, becoming your own unlicensed physician. Your social world is skeletal. 1 or 2 people who don't ask questions. A few faces you recognize but don't trust. Everyone else exists at a safe distance. Loneliness doesn't feel sharp anymore. It's settled into something dull and familiar, like background noise you've learned to ignore. Sometimes, late at night, you remember laughter, real laughter, the kind that comes without calculation. The memory feels foreign, like recalling a language you once spoke fluently but can no longer read. You don't chase the memory. Chasing things has taught you disappointment. Money remains tight, but you've learned how to stretch it, how to prioritize, how to accept loss without reaction. Objects come and go, comforts disappear, the drug remains. That's joke number 4. Discovering what counts as essential. You hear about deaths now. Quiet ones. A name mentioned once, then never again. He got sick. He didn't wake up. No details. No ceremonies. The city absorbs the loss without slowing down. You feel a flicker of fear when you hear these stories. It fades quickly. Fear takes energy you can't spare. Historians still debate how mortality among addicts was perceived at the time, whether it shocked communities or blended into existing post-war loss. Sitting there, listening to a name fade out of conversation, you realize how easy it is for disappearance to feel ordinary. Your own body carries on, stubborn and adaptable. It complains, but it complies. You haven't collapsed. You haven't vanished. You're still here. And being here has become the only metric that matters. As night settles in, you correct the discomfort one more time and lie back, letting the familiar heaviness anchor you. Your breathing slows. Your thoughts quiet into something manageable. You don't dream much anymore. Dreams require imagination. What you have instead is routine. And routine, you've learned, can hold a life together, long after meaning has slipped out of it. For now, that's enough. You close your eyes and let the night pass over you. Another medal quietly earned. Another day survived. Tomorrow will ask the same thing it always does. And you already know how to answer. You stop being surprised by bad news. It arrives now with the dull predictability of weather, unpleasant, unavoidable, rarely catastrophic on its own. A cough that lingers. A letter you don't open right away. A familiar face that doesn't show up again. Each thing lands, settles, becomes part of the background. That's joke number 1. Learning shock has a shelf life. The city keeps moving. Construction cranes dot the skyline like promises that don't include you. New shops open. New slogans appear in windows. Forward, modern, healthy. The words feel decorative, like wallpaper chosen by someone else. You pass through crowds without touching them. People brush by, close enough to feel their warmth. But you don't register faces anymore, just obstacles, gaps, timings. Your awareness has narrowed to what matters. And what matters is very small. Here's a historical truth that rarely gets told from the inside. Many long-term users described a point where survival instincts overtook identity. Historians still debate whether this was psychological collapse or adaptation. Walking through the street, head down, calculating your next correction, it feels like efficiency. You notice changes in your body that you don't comment on anymore. A persistent ache in your chest when you cough. Swelling that comes and goes. A faint numbness in your fingers some mornings. Like circulation needs encouragement to remember you're there. You massage your hands until sensation returns. You don't ask why it's happening. That's joke number 2. Accepting symptoms as personality traits. Your routines have become remarkably precise. You know how long you can wait. You know which sensations mean soon and which mean now. You know how to quiet the panic before it blooms into something uncontrollable. This knowledge feels like competence, like mastery. It's strange how pride sneaks in where hope used to live. Historians still debate whether users understood the long-term consequences of chronic use. Living inside it, the long term feels theoretical. You're dealing with immediate systems, nerves, muscles, breath. Abstract futures don't register when the present demands constant negotiation. You start avoiding certain mirrors again. Not because you hate what you see, but because looking too closely invites questions you don't have energy for. Your face looks leaner, harder. Your eyes seem permanently focused on something just beyond the frame. You look like someone waiting for instructions that never arrive. Food becomes functional at best. You eat what's easy, what's available, what doesn't upset your stomach. Taste feels optional now. Pleasure from eating feels excessive, like an unnecessary luxury. Sleep follows no schedule. Sometimes you collapse into it. Sometimes it avoids you entirely. When you do sleep, the dreams are thin and repetitive, corridors, cues, doors that almost open. You wake without feeling restored. That's joke number 3, resting without resting. You hear more stories now. Not just whispers, patterns. Men getting sick and not recovering. Men disappearing quietly. Men found too late. The details blur together, but the outcome doesn't. You listen without reacting. Reaction requires investment. Historians still debate how mortality was perceived within user communities, whether it provoked fear or resignation. Sitting there, listening to another name fade into silence, you feel something closer to inevitability than alarm. You don't imagine yourself as immune. You just don't imagine yourself at all. That's the quiet shift no one warns you about. The moment you stop picturing a future version of yourself. Good or bad, the idea feels indulgent, unrealistic. You exist only as you are, from one manageable interval to the next. Your body continues to adapt. That's its most impressive skill. It adjusts to poor sleep, to irregular meals, to chemical correction layered over exhaustion. It complains, but it keeps going. You take that as permission. One evening, the discomfort creeps in faster than expected. You correct it quickly, but the relief comes oddly muted. Not absent, just distant. Like sound heard through a wall. You sit there, waiting for the familiar settling that doesn't quite arrive. A flicker of unease passes through you. You adjust again, carefully. The warmth returns, but it feels thin, stretched, as if it's working harder than it used to. You breathe slowly until your heart settles. That's joke number 4. Noticing the margins shrinking. You don't tell anyone about this moment. You don't even tell yourself it matters. Everything matters now and nothing does. Those two states have blurred together completely. Late at night, lying still in the half-dark, you remember something unexpected. A time when boredom existed. Real boredom. Long afternoons with nothing pressing. Nothing aching. Nothing demanding immediate correction. The memory feels almost luxurious. You don't chase it. Chasing memories hurts more than letting them pass. As the hours tick by, your body steadies into its familiar uneasy calm. You listen to the city breathe around you, distant traffic, footsteps, the low hum of electricity. Life continues at a scale that doesn't require your participation. You're still here. That fact alone feels sufficient, even if it doesn't feel good. Survival has narrowed into maintenance. Maintenance has narrowed into habit. Habit has replaced meaning so gradually you didn't notice when the swap happened. You close your eyes and let the night carry you forward. Not toward anything, just through. Tomorrow will arrive. The hunger will announce itself. You will respond. That's the contract now. Not with hope. Not with recovery. Just with the next hour. And for a life that has been reduced to intervals and corrections. That feels, quietly, stubbornly, enough to keep going. Illness doesn't announce itself as a crisis at first. It slips in quietly, disguised as inconvenience, a cough that won't leave, a heaviness in your chest that lingers longer than it should. You notice you're more short of breath on stairs, pausing halfway up without remembering why you stopped. That's joke number 1. Confusing weakness with laziness. You tell yourself it's seasonal. Everyone's sick lately. The city smells damp and metallic, like it always does when the weather turns. You wrap your coat tighter, breathe shallower, and move on. You've learned not to make a fuss over every signal your body sends. Your body, however, has learned to escalate. The cough deepens. It rattles now, low in your chest, something you feel more than hear. Some mornings, it pulls you awake before dawn, leaving your throat raw and your ribs aching. You sit on the edge of the bed, breathing carefully, waiting for the spasm to pass. It always does. Eventually. Here's a historical reality often reduced to footnotes. Chronic infections were common among long-term users in this era, especially respiratory ones, made worse by malnutrition, exhaustion, and compromised immunity. Historians still debate how often these illnesses went untreated. Sitting there, lungs burning faintly with each breath. You don't debate anything, you just wait. You consider seeing a doctor. The thought makes your stomach tighten. Doctors ask questions. Clinics keep records. Records travel. You've learned that illness is safer than scrutiny. You decide to manage it yourself. Rest more when you can. Drink water. Ignore the warning signs when they flare. That's joke number 2, practicing avoidance as medicine. Your appetite dwindles further. Food tastes wrong, heavy and uninviting. You eat sparingly. Not enough to help, just enough to keep the worst dizziness away. Your weight drops gradually, quietly, until your clothes hang looser and your belt needs another notch. You notice. You don't comment. The hunger you know how to manage. This other hunger, nutritional, cellular, feels abstract compared to the one that demands immediate correction. You prioritize accordingly. Sleep becomes more difficult. Lying flat makes the coughing worse. So you prop yourself up with pillows and wake with a stiff neck and sore back. You drift in and out, never fully resting, always half alert to the next interruption from your lungs. That's joke number 3. Being awake even while asleep. The relief you rely on still works, but less cleanly now. Sometimes it seems to quiet the cough briefly, easing the tightness in your chest. Other times, it does nothing at all, leaving you irritated and confused. You adjust doses instinctively, searching for the balance that used to exist. It's harder to find. Historians still debate how illness interacted with addiction, whether sickness intensified dependence or whether dependence masked symptoms until they became severe. From the inside, it feels like both at once. The drug dulls your awareness just enough to delay action, but not enough to restore comfort. You begin rationing your energy. Errands are combined. Movements are economical. You rest more often, not because you want to, but because standing feels like work. Your world shrinks again, this time around breath instead of access. You notice people looking at you differently. Not suspicious, concerned. Someone asks if you're all right. You nod, wave it off, cough into your sleeve. That's joke number 4. Letting symptoms speak while you stay silent. One afternoon, the cough brings up something metallic. You stare at it longer than you should. Heart thudding softly in your chest. The moment stretches. Your mind offers explanations quickly: irritation, dryness, nothing important. You accept them. Acceptance has become your strongest skill. You don't change your routine. You don't seek help. You don't tell anyone. You've learned that reacting rarely improves outcomes. Endurance, on the other hand, has gotten you this far. As evening falls, you correct the familiar discomfort and sit quietly. Breathing shallow but steady. The heaviness in your chest remains. Dull and persistent, like an unpaid debt. You tell yourself it will pass. Most things have. And if it doesn't, you reason, you'll handle that when it arrives, just like everything else. 1 hour at a time. One breath at a time. One correction at a time. You lie back, listening to your own breathing in the dim room, counting the rise and fall until it settles into something manageable. The body adapts. It always has. You trust it to keep doing so. Even as the margins grow thinner. And thinner. And thinner. The weakness arrives before the fear does. You notice it in small betrayals. A cup feels heavier than it should. Standing up requires a pause you didn't plan. Your legs tremble faintly after a short walk, like they've spent energy you don't remember authorizing. You wait for the fear to follow. It doesn't. That's joke number 1. Discovering alarm can be replaced by resignation. The cough lingers, deeper now, less apologetic. It doesn't ask permission before interrupting you. It claims space. Some mornings it leaves you breathless enough that you have to sit still and let the room come back into focus. You breathe shallow, careful not to provoke another fit. You tell yourself this is temporary. You've told yourself that about everything. Here's a historical truth that surfaces again and again in medical records from the era. Chronic illness often went untreated among marginalized users because access felt riskier than endurance. Historians still debate how much this silence contributed to mortality. Sitting there, chest tight, breath measured, you don't debate anything, you choose quiet. You start avoiding stairs, avoiding long walks, avoiding anything that might demand too much air. You reorganize your world to stay close to places you can sit down quickly. Chairs become landmarks. Benches become destinations. That's joke number 2, mapping a city by rest. Your routines compress further. The intervals between corrections shorten. Not because the hunger is louder, but because everything else feels harder. Relief doesn't bring energy anymore, it brings stillness. A pause. A moment where your body agrees not to protest. You treasure those moments. Food becomes an obligation you fulfill mechanically. You choose slowly. Stop early. Drink water to help it settle. The scale of appetite has shifted completely. Hunger for relief eclipses hunger for nourishment every time. Historians still debate whether addiction directly caused malnutrition or whether the life around it did. Living it, the distinction feels meaningless. Your body is running on reserves it didn't intend to spend this way. Sleep offers less than it once did. You wake coughing, chest aching, mouth dry. Your dreams, when they come, are thin and procedural. You're always waiting in line. Always almost at the front. Always told to come back later. That's joke number 3, dreaming in postponements. One afternoon, you feel dizzy standing up and have to grab the edge of a table to steady yourself. The room tilts briefly, then settles. You wait, breathing carefully, until your heart stops racing. The thought arrives late, as if it doesn't want to be noticed. This is getting worse. You don't panic. Panic would require energy. Instead, you adjust. You move slower. You rest more. You correct discomfort sooner. You tell yourself this is what listening to your body looks like. Listening, apparently, means agreeing to limits. You notice your reflection again. Not because you're looking for it, but because it surprises you when it appears. Your face looks drawn, eyes too large, skin dulled to a tired gray. You look like someone conserving something essential. You are. Here's a lesser-known historical detail tucked into coroner reports and hospital logs. Many people near the end didn't perceive themselves as dying. They perceived themselves as managing decline. Historians still debate whether awareness would have changed outcomes. Standing there, hand still on the table. You don't think about endings. You think about getting through the afternoon. You hear more names now. Not whispers, confirmations. Someone didn't make it through the winter. Someone was found too late. The city absorbs the news without ceremony. You absorb it the same way. That's joke number 4. Learning how normal disappearance can feel. As evening comes, the cough worsens, scraping at your chest with each breath. You correct the hunger and feel the familiar heaviness settle. But it doesn't smooth everything anymore. The tightness lingers. The breath stays shallow. You sit still and let it be. Stillness has become your strongest skill. You don't make plans for tomorrow. You don't picture next month. The future feels like an unnecessary abstraction. What you have is this room. This chair, this breath. And right now, that's enough. You lie back carefully, arranging pillows to keep your chest elevated. You count breaths until the rhythm steadies. Your body, stubborn and practiced, finds a way to comply. As sleep edges closer, a thought drifts through you, not fear, not regret, just observation. You've spent years learning how to survive discomfort. Now discomfort is teaching you how small survival can become. The night settles in quietly, and you let it. Pain changes its texture near the end. It stops being sharp, stops demanding attention. Instead, it becomes something dense and heavy. Like a blanket you can't quite shake off. Your chest feels weighted now. Every breath an intentional act rather than a reflex. You don't gasp. You ration air carefully, as if the supply might run out if you're careless. That's joke number 1. Learning how to breathe like it's a privilege. The cough still comes, but it's weaker somehow, less violent, more persistent. It rattles low, deep, like it's lost the energy to protest properly. When it passes, it leaves behind a dull ache that settles into your ribs and stays there. Quietly. You stop wondering what it means. Meaning requires interpretation. You're past that. Here's a historical truth buried deep in medical memoirs and hospital notes. Many people in the final stages of long-term illness described a narrowing of sensation rather than escalation. Historians still debate whether this was physiological decline or the mind protecting itself. Sitting there, breathing shallowly, you feel wrapped in a strange calm that doesn't feel earned, but doesn't feel frightening either. Your movements have slowed to match your breathing. Standing takes planning. Walking takes resolve. You avoid it when you can. Chairs, beds, and walls become allies. Gravity feels stronger than it used to. That's joke number 2. Discovering the floor is always patient. Food has become ceremonial. A few bites, a sip of water, enough to reassure the body you haven't abandoned it entirely. Your stomach no longer protests, it has accepted the arrangement. Hunger, in every form except one, has gone quiet. The one hunger that remains is familiar, predictable, manageable. You correct it with practiced ease. The relief comes softly now, almost apologetically, like it knows it's no longer the star of the show. It takes the edge off just enough to let your muscles relax and your thoughts drift. You don't feel pleasure. You feel allowed to rest. That's joke number 3, redefining luxury. Time behaves strangely. Hours stretch and compress without warning. You lose track of days. Then remember them suddenly. Out of sequence. The calendar no longer means much. Your body keeps its own schedule now, measured in breaths and stillness. People come by less often. Not because they don't care, because there's less to say. Conversation feels like effort. You answer questions politely, briefly, saving your energy for things that matter more. Though you're not sure what those are anymore. You notice that you're no longer afraid of being alone. Solitude feels neutral now, quiet, manageable. Historians still debate when acceptance sets in, whether it's resignation or adaptation. Lying there, eyes half closed, listening to the faint sounds of the building around you. You don't label it. Labels don't help. You think about the past less often. When memories surface, they're distant and uncharged, like photographs you've already studied too many times. There's no urgency to revisit them. Regret, too, has softened, not erased, just dulled. The sharp edges that once caught your attention have worn down through constant handling. That's joke number 4. Learning even regret gets tired. One afternoon, you realize you've been sitting without correcting discomfort longer than usual. The hunger whispers, but it doesn't shout. Your body seems preoccupied with something else, holding itself together. Perhaps you let the moment stretch. Nothing terrible happens. This surprises you more than anything else has in a long time. You don't push it. You don't test it further. You simply notice. The way you notice everything now, without judgment, without commentary. As evening settles, the light in the room dims naturally. You don't bother turning on a lamp. The half-dark feels appropriate. Your breathing is shallow but steady. Your heart moves slowly, deliberately, as if conserving effort. You lie back, supported by pillows, body aligned in the one position that feels tolerable. Your thoughts drift without urgency, landing briefly on nothing in particular before moving on. There's no grand realization here. No speech, no final accounting. Just a quiet understanding. You have spent a long time learning how to endure. And now, endurance has become very small. Small enough to fit into a single breath. A single moment of stillness. A single night. You close your eyes, not to escape, but to rest. The room stays quiet. Your body stays compliant. And for now, that is enough. You start sleeping more. Not the deep, restorative kind people talk about with fondness, but long stretches of drifting in and out. Where time loosens its grip and moments blur together without argument. You wake unsure how long you've been gone. Or whether you were gone at all. The distinction feels unimportant. That's joke number 1. Discovering consciousness is optional. When you are awake, the room feels distant, as if there's a thin pane of glass between you and everything else. Sounds arrive softened, light feels muted. Even when it's bright, your body rests in a state of low, steady effort, breathing shallow and measured, like it's learned not to ask for more than it can manage. The cough still visits, but it's tired now. It comes in brief fits and then retreats, leaving you weak but oddly calm. You wait for the panic that used to follow these moments. It doesn't come. Here's a historical truth that appears quietly in end-of-life accounts. As the body declines, anxiety often lessens, replaced by a narrowing focus on immediate sensation. Historians still debate whether this is chemistry or psychology. Lying there, eyes half closed, you don't analyze it. You accept the calm with cautious gratitude. Your appetite has nearly vanished. Food feels symbolic now. Something you take a few bites of to reassure others. Not yourself. Your body doesn't protest. It seems to have agreed to new terms. Water matters more. You sip it carefully, feeling it cool your throat, tracing its path downward with gentle awareness. Small sensations have grown important. Texture, temperature, stillness. That's joke number 2. Learning the smallest things take up the most space. You correct the familiar hunger less often now. Not because it's gone, but because it's quieter. Less insistent. When you do correct it, the effect is mild, almost background. The relief doesn't arrive as an event anymore. It arrives as permission to stay still. You don't think about control. You don't think about rules. Those concepts feel far away. Visitors come occasionally. They speak softly, as if loud voices might disrupt something fragile. You recognize their faces, even if their names take longer to surface. Conversation feels unnecessary. Presence is enough. You're grateful for that. Historians still debate how awareness fades near the end, whether the mind lets go gradually or in uneven steps. From the inside, it feels like sinking into warm water, slow, enveloping, not unpleasant. Your thoughts drift more freely now. They don't cling to fear or regret. They move in loose loops, sometimes landing on memories, sometimes on nothing at all. When memories surface, they don't demand resolution. They simply appear, then dissolve. You notice you're no longer keeping track of time. That feels like a relief. That's joke number 3. Being free from schedules at last. Your body rests heavier into the bed, bones and muscles arranging themselves into whatever position costs the least effort. Breathing remains shallow but steady. Each inhale feels deliberate, but not difficult. Each exhale carries a faint sense of release. The world beyond the room feels abstract now. The city, the noise, the long years of negotiation and survival. They exist, but they don't press on you anymore. You're here. That's enough. As evening deepens, shadows soften the edges of the room. You don't resist sleep when it comes. You let it take you gently. Without commentary. The drifting feels natural, expected. Before slipping fully under, a thought passes through you, not sharp, not emotional, just clear. You spent so long learning how to endure discomfort. Now, discomfort has loosened its hold. The night settles around you like a familiar blanket. Your breathing finds its rhythm. Your body, tired but cooperative, does what it has always done. It adapts. And you rest, suspended somewhere between waking and sleep, carried forward not by effort, but by letting go. For now, that is enough. Awareness thins without asking your permission. You notice it the way you notice dusk, by what's missing rather than what's added. Thoughts don't line up anymore. They drift in, pause, drift out again, leaving only impressions behind. The effort it takes to follow one to the end feels unnecessary. That's joke number 1. Realizing conclusions are optional. Your breathing has found a shallow, careful rhythm. It doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It simply continues, like a metronome set to the slowest tempo that still counts as music. Each breath feels intentional, but not difficult. Your body seems to know exactly how little it needs. The room appears and disappears around you. Sometimes you notice the ceiling. Sometimes a patch of light on the wall. Sometimes nothing at all. The transitions don't alarm you. They feel orderly, almost considerate. Here's a quiet historical observation drawn from hospice notes and personal letters. Many people near the end describe a narrowing of consciousness paired with a surprising sense of calm. Historians still debate whether this is relief, chemistry, or surrender. From the inside, it feels like simplicity. You don't correct the familiar hunger as often now. Not because it's gone, but because it has softened into the background. Less urgent than breathing, less demanding than rest. When you do respond to it, the effect is gentle, brief, like a hand placed lightly on your shoulder. Permission. That's all it feels like. That's joke number 2. Discovering relief doesn't need to be loud. You sleep more than you're awake. And when you're awake, you're not entirely sure why. The distinction between the two states has blurred into something continuous and quiet. Dreams no longer have stories. They're made of sensations, warmth, motion, light, passing through without attachment. You wake from them without disorientation. Visitors come and go. You register their presence the way you register weather, noticed, accepted, not analyzed. Voices are soft. Touch is careful. You sense concern without feeling responsible for it. That responsibility has lifted. Historians still debate whether letting go is a conscious act or a gradual physiological shift. Lying there, eyes half closed, you don't feel like you're choosing anything. Things are simply happening less. Your body rests heavier into the bed. Muscles relax into positions you didn't arrange. Your hands lie open, no longer clenched around control or timing or preparation. Even your jaw, once so tight, has loosened. That's joke number 3, finally unclenching. Time behaves strangely now. Minutes stretch and fold into each other. You might drift for what feels like seconds and wake to find hours have passed. The clock has lost its authority. You don't miss it. You notice sensations instead. The cool of air on your face. The warmth under the blanket. The steady, quiet work of your heart. Moving carefully, deliberately, as if it's conserving effort out of courtesy. There's no fear in this awareness. That surprises you. You spent years bracing against pain, absence, exposure, judgment. Bracing became your posture. And now, without announcement, the need to brace has dissolved. Here's a lesser-known truth found between the lines of medical records. Many people describe a final period where struggle gives way to compliance. Not as defeat, but as rest. Historians still debate the language for it. From the inside, it feels like lying down after standing too long. You don't think about the past much anymore. When memories surface, they're soft-edged and incomplete. Like photographs left too long in the sun. There's no urge to fix them. No impulse to relive or reframe. Regret doesn't visit. Neither does hope. Those were heavy things. You set them down. That's joke number 4, traveling lighter than ever before. As evening approaches, or maybe it's morning, it's hard to say, the light in the room changes subtly. You notice, then forget. Your breathing remains steady. Your body remains cooperative. The quiet deepens. You close your eyes and don't feel like you're leaving anything behind. You're not going anywhere. You're just resting. And in this rest, stripped of calculation and correction and endurance, something simple settles in. For the first time in a very long while. There is nothing you need to manage. Nothing to fix. Nothing to prepare for. Just this breath. And then the next. You let them come as they will. And that, finally, feels effortless. Sound becomes the last thing to loosen its grip. You notice it before anything else. The way noise drifts in and out. Untethered from meaning. A door closing somewhere far away. Footsteps that pause, then move on. A voice speaking softly. Words blurring into tone rather than language. You don't try to follow them. Understanding feels optional now. That's joke number 1. Realizing meaning takes energy. Your breathing is quieter than it's ever been. Shallow, careful, almost polite. Each breath seems to wait its turn, arriving only when absolutely necessary. There's no struggle in it. No urgency. Just continuation. The room feels larger somehow. as if its edges have moved farther away. Or maybe you've grown smaller inside it. The distinction doesn't matter. You feel held, by the bed, by the stillness, by the simple fact of not having to decide anything anymore. Here's a quiet historical observation drawn from bedside accounts and nursing notes. Near the very end, many people stop reacting to discomfort in recognizable ways. Historians still debate whether sensation fades or attention simply moves elsewhere. From the inside, it feels like the body turning down the volume on everything at once. You don't correct the familiar hunger anymore. Not because it's resolved, but because it no longer demands a response. It's there, somewhere distant, like a memory you don't need to revisit. The need that once organized your entire life has softened into irrelevance. That surprises you, briefly. Then even that surprise passes. That's joke number 2. Discovering even need gets tired. Your hands feel light, almost absent. They rest where they are placed. Fingers slightly curled, no longer reaching for reassurance or control. Your jaw stays loose. Your shoulders sink deeper into the mattress, finally giving up their long habit of bracing. You realize, without emotion, that you're no longer monitoring yourself. No checking. No counting. No anticipation. For years, awareness was your job, your body's supervisor, its negotiator. Now, supervision has been reassigned to something quieter and more efficient. Historians still debate whether consciousness fades evenly or in fragments. Lying there, eyes closed, you experience it as widening gaps between moments of clarity, spaces where nothing needs to happen. Those spaces are peaceful. Voices come and go. You recognize care in them, even if you don't recognize who they belong to. Someone adjusts a blanket. Someone pauses near you longer than necessary. You register warmth, then let it pass without reaction. You don't feel alone. That's joke number 3. Learning solitude isn't the same as isolation. Your thoughts no longer form sentences. They arrive as impressions: light, warmth, heaviness, release. Each one appears, then dissolves before it can become a concern. Time is no longer linear. It feels layered, like moments stacked gently on top of each other. Breath in, breath out. The rhythm remains. Your heart moves slowly now, deliberately, like it's finishing a long task with care. Each beat feels considered, not rushed. You don't listen for it. You simply exist alongside it. There's no fear here. That still surprises you. You spent so much of your life afraid, of pain, of absence, of exposure, of running out. Fear shaped your posture, your decisions, your days. And now, without fanfare, it has slipped away. Here's a lesser-known truth drawn from end-of-life reflections. Many people report not a moment of terror, but of neutrality, an emotional leveling that feels neither good nor bad, just complete. Historians still debate how universal this is. From the inside, it feels like balance at last. You're no longer holding on. You're not letting go either. You're simply not gripping anything. That's joke number 4, ending without effort. The light in the room changes again. You sense it rather than see it. Your breathing slows further, pausing gently between inhales as if considering whether another is necessary. There's no rush. You've learned patience better than anyone ever intended. The world narrows to sensation, then to stillness. Even the idea of you feels less defined, more like a location than a person. A quiet place where something has been happening for a long time. And now, that something is winding down. Softly. Carefully. Without argument. You rest in that quiet. Untroubled by what comes next. Because for the first time since the war, since the hunger, since the endless calculations, nothing is asking anything of you. And you don't have to answer. The last sensations arrive gently, as if they don't want to startle you. Breath becomes something you notice only when it happens. There is a pause between inhales now, longer than before. But not alarming, just spacious. Each breath feels like a suggestion rather than a requirement. And your body accepts it when it comes. Lets it go when it leaves. That's joke number 1. Discovering effort was optional all along. Sound has almost completely let go of meaning. What remains is vibration without urgency. A murmur. A hush. You no longer separate one noise from another. They blend into a single, low presence, like wind heard from very far away. Your body feels lighter, not heavier. The weight you carried for years, tension, vigilance, readiness, has slipped away without ceremony. Muscles that once clenched automatically now rest where they fall. Even discomfort seems unsure of how to reach you anymore. Here's a quiet historical truth found in the margins of end-of-life records. Many people experience a final easing rather than a final struggle. Historians still debate whether this is chemistry, consciousness, or mercy. From the inside, it feels like permission. You are no longer tracking time. The idea of now has stretched so wide it contains everything. Past and future don't press on you. They feel distant, unimportant, like stories you've already heard enough times. That's joke number 2. Realizing urgency was learned, not natural. Your breathing slows again. The pauses lengthen. Each inhale arrives softly, almost reluctantly, as if it's checking whether it's still needed. Each exhale carries a sense of release so complete it feels final, until the next breath proves otherwise. For a while, your thoughts no longer form images. They don't form words. What remains is sensation stripped to its simplest elements: warmth, stillness, quiet. Even the idea of you feels less solid now, more like a place where awareness once gathered. You are not afraid of this. That realization arrives clearly, and then passes. Here's a lesser-known observation from those who sat beside beds like yours. The end often comes without drama. No revelation, no summary, just a gradual softening, like a hand loosening its grip after holding something too long. Your body seems to agree. Breath becomes intermittent, gentle, sparse. The pauses stretch until they feel complete on their own. There is no signal telling you this is important. No internal alarm, just stillness deepening naturally. That's joke number 3. Learning how quiet completion can be. You are not thinking about the drug anymore, or the hunger, or the war, or the years spent managing pain and absence and fear. Those things feel finished, not resolved. Just done asking for attention. All that remains is rest. And rest does not require explanation. Your final awareness is not of loss, but of relief so subtle it barely registers. A release from monitoring, from correcting, from enduring. The long work of staying alive has ended its shift. The body, faithful and exhausted, lets go. Breath pauses and does not return. There is no sensation of stopping, only the absence of continuation. The room remains. The quiet remains. But you do not need to. You have finished. End of script. Sweet dreams.